Good evening, bonsoir, bienvenue à la réunion extraordinaire publique. Welcome to the special public meeting. I'll give you the mic, Ms. Parker. So do we have any declaration of conflict of interest?
There were no conflicts of interest declared.
Perfect, all right. So this evening we have finances. We'll be talking about different sections. We'll go to Madame Gauvin, and we'll certainly start with the Capital Budget General Fund. Madame Gauvin, you have the mic.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, bonsoir. Ce soir, nous continuons le processus budgétaire 2024, entamé publiquement depuis environ un mois. Comme rappel, as a reminder, the city has 4 types of budgets: the general operating budget, the utility operating budget, the general capital budget, and the utility capital budget. All of them have a multitude of contributing components. So this is how we will go through the budgets throughout all of the sessions, and we've already started with the first one. Donc, les résultats des discussions de travail seront vraiment intégrés à l'intérieur des sessions. Toutes les sessions, les discussions qu'on a d'ici jusqu'au 20 novembre sont vraiment des sessions de travail. Donc, entre autres, le 11 et 18 septembre, nous avons reçu les demandes de comités et des commissions. Maintenant, nous débutons les présentations de différents budgets par les départements de la Ville. Entre autres, ce soir, nous allons présenter le budget d'immobilisation du Fonds général. Nous allons aussi présenter le budget du Fonds utilité en immobilisation et le Fonds opérationnel pour le Fonds d'utilité. Vous allez voir, nous allons aussi présenter une étude faite par le département pour les frais d'eau et d'égout potentiels pour 2024, ainsi que le budget de la Commission des services régionaux, de la Commission des services régionaux. Donc ça, c'est ce soir. Les demandes des comités qui sont venus l'autre jour, le 11 et le 18, et le 18 font partie, pour la grande majorité, du fonds général qui sera présenté le 25 octobre. Donc, c'est pour ça, si vous pensez peut-être qu'on a oublié une des demandes reçues, c'est juste parce que c'est établi dans un différent budget. Donc, le 25 octobre, nous présenterons le budget opérationnel du fonds général et réviserons à nouveau les budgets précédents en intégrant les choix des réunions précédentes. Le 6 novembre, une dernière révision sera faite et si tous les points de discussion ont été adressés, les résolutions seront apportées pour adoption le 20 novembre. Donc, toutes les données présentées d'ici les résolutions, comme je mentionnais, peuvent changer et évoluer au fur et à mesure qu'on avance dans le processus. All of the data presented from here until the resolution can change and evolve as we go forward in the process. Tonight, it's a working session. The official budget resolution is scheduled for November 20th. I can't say that enough because tonight, if you make a decision, it is a decision to guide staff on what to incorporate on the next draft of the budget, but the official resolution is November 20th. So if everybody is ready, si tout le monde est prêt, on va débuter avec le budget en capital. We will start with listing the recommended projects for the year 2024, then present a proposed financing plan. It should be mentioned that the yearly needs far exceed the yearly capabilities. Not including equipment and fleet, between the general fund and the capital fund, there is an infrastructure deficit of $138 million. This means assets are coming to the end of their life cycle faster than we are replacing them. Staff is working diligently to have an asset management plan linked to how it can be financed, whether cash or borrowed. But even with this plan, aging of its assets will remain one of the biggest ongoing issues for years to come. So let's begin with the general fund for capital with the list of recommended new assets. You can see the complete list of recommended new assets in these 2 slides. We'll come back to it after Mr. Abernathy presents each one of them in more details. But for now, you can keep in mind that they are divided between Ward 1 and Ward 2, which is the new limits joined to the new city of Bathurst. This is because each wards pay for their own capital budget within their own tax rate as part of the municipal reform. Also, a reminder, the province is still maintaining roads or other specific services for Ward 2. This is why you will not see the request for roads or any of these services in this capital budget. This should be included in the provincial ones, not these ones. For the explanations for individual requests, I will let Mr. Abernathy come up.
Thank you, Ms. Gauvin. My apologies for coming in a little late, but right on time, apparently. Oh, yeah, no problem. Give you a coffee. All right, so starting off, we have an issue with some building HVAC units at the police station. We've got obsolete controls and units there. So basically, we're not able to dial in and make alterations to the systems that are there now. So it complicates things when people are on call and whatnot. We also have a failed unit there as well. So we're looking for $75,000 for the police station controls and the rooftop unit. Similar situation at Public Works. There's a failed unit at Public Works. There's no AC in the upper areas, and there's an inability to control variable temperatures between offices. Makes it very uncomfortable for the employees working there. So $50,000 for that. City Hall HVAC controls and power exhaust. The controls issue is similar to the police station. We're not able to dial in or have control anymore. The systems are completely obsolete. If there's any failures with them, there's no parts available anymore to fix those. And the replacement of a power exhaust. There's a significant noise in a few offices due to a failed unit as well, which needs replacement. So police vehicles, pretty standard request from the police force. They request 2 vehicles every year to maintain their fleet below the maximum kilometerage on their vehicles. They're basic interceptor type vehicles, just like every other year. Requesting $70,000 per vehicle for those. The fire department are requesting $30,000 for a new training facility. Their current facility, I don't know if anybody has seen it, it's over on Reardon Avenue. It's basically an abandoned structure. It's moldy, it's not usable anymore. So they're looking at tearing that down and replacing it with a CCAN structure similar to what's in the picture here. It's not exact, I just kind of grabbed that off the internet, but something similar to that. So $30,000 for that. Fire vehicles, the fire department had a 1-ton truck which requires a proper warm-up for it to operate properly. Obviously, that's not ideal for a fire department, so we're repurposing that vehicle over to Public Works. We've eliminated a vehicle from the request list from Public Works because we're going to be replacing it with that vehicle from the fire department. However, there is a need for a 1-ton truck to haul the hazmat trailer and also to be a daily driver for deputy chief as well. So $140,000, that's outfitted with a space cap and various equipment as well. So that's $140,000 for that. For St. Anne Regional Fire, so again, this would be Ward 1, I believe, not Ward 2, right? Ward 2? Okay, sorry, Ward 2. So not the City of Bathurst Old Ward's request, but the St. Anne Regional Fire request. They're requesting a snowmobile for Outer Limit Trail rescues. We had a look at their current units. I believe one of them is a 2012 and one of them is a 2016. They're looking to replace the 2012 for a snowmobile. That's quite old. So obviously they need a good, reliable machine to be going out into the wilderness to do the rescues. Over at Daly Point, we did do a repair of a structure this past year for $50,000. There is a second structure there that also needs basically a full replacement. It is the access down to the beach from the Gulch Trail, so we're requesting $50,000 to replace that. Splash pad upgrade, as you heard from the Coronation Park Committee request, we're looking at replacing the current splash pad due to obsolete controls and valve units and plumbing that's below ground right now, which is flooding and frying electrical units and whatnot. So we're looking at bringing that panel above ground, kind of a more modern setup, and also looking to expand the splash pad and maybe integrating it a little bit more into the existing playground. So the total project cost for that is about $500,000, and obviously this request is conditional upon other funding from other sources as well. The Casey Irving Center is requesting a new sound system. Their current sound system's obsolete. They're not able to repair it. I think the guys over at the KCI had gotten some quotes on rental units and whatnot to bring in case of a failure of the current unit, and they're looking at tens of thousands of dollars to rent a unit for the year. So if the current system there fails, they're without sound at the KCI, so they're looking to replace that for a cost of $125,000. The ice plant controls. When the ice plant was originally built, it was kind of pieced together by kind of a local entrepreneur, I guess you'd say. There's no longer parts available for this for this unit anymore. It's vital to the operation of the ice plant. If anything goes wrong with that unit, we're done, and there have been some failures over the last little while. So this past year, there was some money allocated for a design for a new unit. That's been completed. This is for the purchase and install of the new unit. So $150,000 for new controls for the ice plant. Transportation operations, again, another standard request, just a half-ton work truck to replace our aging fleet. We've got multiple trucks in the 2005, 2006, 2007 range that obviously are at the end of their lifespan. They're being patched together every year. You know, many units more money is being spent on them than they're actually worth every year. So looking to replace one of those in the fleet. Street paving. We had completed a section of Basin Street this past summer. We're looking to continue that and go down over the hill from the top of Basin Hill down to the Little River Bridge. So we're looking for $200,000 to complete that work. That would be work, again, that would be done in-house by our staff. So a project that we'd like to complete probably early June next year, or as soon as school is done anyway, probably end of June actually. So $200,000 for that. Continuing with more street paving, if anyone's been through the industrial park lately, they obviously know what kind of condition that's in. So there's the main entrance, which is Foley, which we're looking to redo. And a section on Connolly had been done over the last few years. It's in great shape. But right after Connolly is a section called Reardon. Reardon's in terrible shape. It certainly needs to be redone. It's pretty heavy traffic there, so we're looking to do the exact same things we're doing on Basin, just to pulverize or regrade and pave, maybe do a little bit of undercut. Thicker pave due to the heavier vehicular traffic there. So again, another $200,000 for that project. And again, done in-house by our employees. Street rebuilds, storm sewer separation. So we've been approved for a major rebuild of St. Anne Street and Chaleur Street. Total project cost of $5.3 million. So essentially, when we're doing those full rebuilds, it's a complete excavation of the road base, of the water, the sewer, the storm, the sidewalks, the curbs, everything. We dig all the way down. We rebuild everything back up. And so the section on St. Anne Street would be from St. Peter Avenue to the CN Rail Bridge, so through Evangeline intersection and up to the CN, so down the hill and back up the other side. Obviously, everybody's aware of what kind of shape that's in, so we're glad to get that done. And then also over on Chaleur Street, excuse me, very heavy on our water and sewer maintenance crews over on Chaleur Street. A lot of water breaks over there and issues. So we're happy to get that done as well. That's the entire length of Chaleur. That's from St. Peter Avenue all the way down to the corner of Victoria. I don't have the amounts here that we're requesting, but it's approximately 27%, I imagine, of the total project cost. Oh, you have it later on? Okay, perfect.
We do.
Oh, okay, there.
Would you be good to take a
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Is this Basin Street the only street we're planning on doing in-house for next year? Or?
Basin Street, Foley, and Reardon is what we're looking to do, yeah.
That's the plan, okay.
Yeah.
No, we sat here in council and got complaints about other streets, and nobody complained about Basin Street, so, you know, that's why I'm wondering where that come from or whatever, because you know, there's other streets in town a lot worse than Basin Street, and for $200,000, I think we could do more than one street that are just as bad or worse than that one. I don't know how much we are at Pitcher, but you know, that's a good example right there. That was a lot worse that was done. So The only thing I'd looked at Basin Street would be at the bottom where the railroad track used to cross. I mean, if you wanna talk about a hazard, that's a hazard there, going up there with the walking trail coming off onto there. You know, we should be thinking about cutting down that lump so that people coming from, Middle River or Little River and that wouldn't have that problem of seeing where they're coming from. But, just my opinion, I don't,
Yep, for
I
sure.
haven't seen anybody complain about that street.
Yeah,
Not to me, I don't know about any other councillors, but I've heard a lot of complaints about other streets, and we had a presentation here in council on other streets that citizens were complaining about, so.
Yeah.
Couture was one, and we rectified that, but,
yeah, I totally understand. We don't make our recommendations based on complaints, right? We make them based on condition, vehicular traffic, certain other, you know, those types of factors. If you look at Basin Street, it's a through collector. It's near a school. It's got no shoulders. It's very humpbacked. It's difficult for snow removal because it's got large ruts. So in the wintertime, it gets fairly treacherous there. Also, in the past, we've had issues with kind of doing certain sections and not completing it. So since we were able to do that first half of Basin last year, we figured probably a good idea to continue to get all the way down. Lots of pedestrian traffic there, so be able to put a paved shoulder there to at least accommodate some of that. Those are some of the reasons, but mostly general condition and vehicular traffic. We have all the streets in the city listed and ranked based on those factors. So that's why that was pulled out there. So, but certainly open for discussion if any others would like to be done. Our crews are more than capable. The only other thing is, I'm not sure if we remember the presentation I had done. I can't remember. I think it was in the fall, or it might have been in the spring. But the type of street that we're able to do in house is different from what something with curbs or storm sewer or things like that. A little more difficult for us to do in house. So trying to stretch those dollars. $200,000 does not go very far on a street that has curbs or storm or anything like that, right? So trying to stretch those dollars on those streets that are seeing high vehicular traffic. And we're able to do that, have ditches and culverts and stuff instead. So stretching those dollars a little bit, but again, open for discussion on that for sure. Yeah.
Definitely we need to hike what we're spending on streets compared to what your department was cut for years and years, but we definitely got to spend more money on streets. Mm-hmm. Our guys are doing an excellent job, real nice work. Mm-hmm. If anybody didn't see it, go take a drive around town and see the streets that were done. And Couture was probably one of the top jobs that was done by our employees, but we need to get more done.
Mm-hmm. I think they just finished paving that today, actually, put the top coat on. St. Anne and Chaleur, 2 streets as well. Those will be brand new pave as well, obviously. So it's pretty significant there as well, and high volume traffic streets as well. So I think there'll be quite a bit of streets rebuilds next year, but again, certainly open to discussion on which ones get done. There's no issue there.
So we are lit up. Are you okay, Councillor?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Great job on Couture, by the way. I did go see it. So we do have Councillor Branch and Councillor Burnett. So we'll start with Councillor Branch.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just have a few quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering where we are with looking at policing for Ward 2. Is the city
That will
going to
probably
able-
be further in right now. So there's different topics that we will be addressing. If I'm not mistaken, Madame Gauvin, maybe later on you'll be talking about it, or?
The policing is part of the general operating budget, which is presented October 25th.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. I was just wondering if there would be additional capital. That's why I was, okay. Another question. I was just wondering if, I guess this would be operating too, like if we'd have a recovery from the province for fire protection, like we're making capital expenditures to buy snowmobiles from Ward 2. So I'm just wondering, is there a cost recovery on some of that
This would all
stuff
be,
through?
yeah, this will all be presented mixed with a few slides and operating budget on October 25th.
Okay, perfect. And the last question I had is the ice plant controls. You had mentioned it was designed. I was just wondering, is there no off-the-shelf solution? And the other thing I'm curious about is if the controls would integrate if we went with the new aquatic center as we're looking at, or would they have to be replaced again?
All questions that I cannot answer. I'm sorry. Yeah, I wasn't involved in that side of things. It's the KCI, and doesn't fall under my purview. So
Okay.
I'm presenting the capital, so it falls in there. But Ryan, I don't know if, not really something we can answer, I don't think. But I can certainly look into it and get back to you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, okay. Okay, Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, to you, to Mr. Abernathy. You did a great job on Basin Street around the school. I found it very dangerous there with quite a dip in the road. And like you say, snow removal being quite a problem, and no shoulders for people to walk on, and a lot of people walk the basin. So I think continuation to finish it would be the way to go. I'm glad that you put it on there. But like Councillor Willett, that blind hill at the bottom there when you come out of Little River Drive, he and I have been talking about that for a while since we've been elected, and that to me is a very dangerous spot. I came out of there a couple of times this year while visiting people up in Little River, and I said, well, you can't see a thing when you come out of there. You take a chance, or you scoot right across in order to try to get out. So Basin, I'm pleased that you're doing it, and you did a great job in front of the school, and all those buses, all those kids going there. I think it's a lot safer now than it ever has been. But Reardon Drive, you mentioned about heavy truck traffic, and you're going to do it in-house. Is that going to be a different level of paving? Are you going thicker? Are you going to try to make it last longer? Because there will be heavy trucks there forever, and it's not like some of the other streets that we do. It's all heavy truck traffic in there, so is there any different plans for that, even if it's in-house?
Yes, so whenever we did Connolly, that was designed, that was handled by Roy Consultants. So we already have a design specific for that. It's basically 4 inches of base asphalt with 1.5 inches of seal asphalt. It's just a little bit thicker asphalt. It's basically all it is.
Because we're finally getting to it, and it's bad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you got a plan to make it last a little longer.
For sure.
What about the fire station? You're looking for a new vehicle, and since we've taken in another ward or two, we've taken, I think, also 4 fire halls, and they all have trucks in them and equipment. And I know that you're just in discussions with what we're going to do with all our fire service and that. But what about all that equipment? Is that not available to the fire hall right now, or is it just not the right type?
I think the fire chief would probably be the best person to answer that question.
Oh,
I can't answer that for you.
That's just a thought I had.
Yep.
And the last question I have, Madam Mayor, is
Yes.
all this gear that you have to release on the rooftops, is there any warranty on it, or is it all over 20, 25 years?
Oh, it's all
It's
yeah.
beyond its life?
It's all original equipment from the renovations at the Roussel O'Neill and the
Even
was
this
from
building is
2003,
20-some years old. So,
Yeah, 2003. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Sonia, did you want to go through this? Okay. I'll
Okay.
hand it back to you.
You explain the HVAC, I'll explain numbers. Okay, so the last project that was presented was the reconstruction of Chaleur and Saint Anne. So this is a significant project which requires a little bit more explanation. So this last project was approved this summer, I believe in July, and the total cost, as Mr. Abernathy said, is $5.3 million. And that project is one that is divided 60% between the general capital fund and 40% for the utility capital fund. So that's why when we look at the numbers, we're kind of splitting it between the two, because it also splits the impact on each fund as well. So for the 60% for the general fund, it is an impact of $3.2 million, and 40% of it is part of the utility fund for $2.1 million. The federal government will be contributing 40%, the provincial government will be contributing 33%, and the city will be contributing 27% for a little over $1.4 million between both funds. In order to finance this project, the city will be requiring to go for interim financing in the amount of $3.9 million for the provincial and federal part while this project is going to be happening, and 1.4 in long-term borrowing, and 13.5 thousand in cash because the project needed to be started in 2023 for the engineering report. So that amount we had to not wait and delay, because then we would have missed deadlines. So now that we've looked, we'll put all of this together. Now that we've looked at all the recommended new assets, we need to look at how the whole will be financed. So when we look at everything, you can see that the police station rooftop HVAC and convert controls, that 75,000, that will be paid cash, as well as the HVAC for rooftop at Public Works. Convert HVAC controls at City Hall, 50,000. The 2 police vehicle would be paid cash. The fire Bathurst, the CCAN for training center, that's 30,000, and that would be part of the Ward 1's budget for fire department. The 1-ton crew space cap, that is for 140 as well, would be part of the Ward 1's budget, paid cash. The recreational parks development, when we look at Daily Point, 50,000 would be paid cash, but then the splash pad upgrade for 150, the portion for the city would be through long-term borrowing, but with interim financing for the portion that would be funded through our partners for the full 500. The sound system, if approved, would be paid cash for 125,000. Ice plant control replacement would be through long-term borrowing. Half-ton truck would be paid cash for 65,000. The street reconstructions would be both paid through long-term borrowing for a total of 400,000 between both. And the major project I just presented, this is the impact for the general capital fund, so 8,106 cash for the general fund, the balance is in the utility. Long-term borrowing, 840, and 2.3 million in interim financing. When we look at the fire station for Ward 2, the snowmobile for 25,000, that would be paid cash because they usually have a budget for capital purchase of about 30,000, and they've identified the snowmobile this year for 25. When we come to the fire San Ann, you'll see when we talk about the general operating budget that we do distribute the cost between Ward 2, and they provide services to other locals around them. So there is an invoice that is also charged to the province for the other rural districts around. So it is recuperated in another means, but that is part of the general operating. But that 25 is usually fit into their operational cash budget for capital. So as a total, cash would be for 733,000. Long-term borrowing 10 years would be for 700,000, and the 15,000 would be for the big project of 840,000 for Chaleur and San Ann, and then the interim financing for 2.6. So you can see if we do projections for when we go to debenture, the cost of the interest to borrow for those. So the cost of interest for 10 years on the first 700 would be 136,000 for a total paid at the end of 836. The 15 years, that would be interest of 296,000 for a total paid of 1.1. And then when we look at the bank, we have an interest rate of prime minus 2. So right now the prime rate in Canada is 7.2. So the interest rate is 6.2. So the working capital for that would be very, very important, because if we have everything for a full year for the full amount, it's 160-something thousand interest. However, when we have the expenses come in and we do claims as fast as possible when we can, then we get reimbursed as fast as possible and reduce the interest that is charged on them. So that would be very, very important to maintain and look at the working capital. So when you look at the total base budget, really you have 4.9 million in proposed capital budget. In principal, it would be an amount of 2.2, in interest 469 for a total paid of 5.4. So how will these impact long term? Well, as mentioned, we have an infrastructure deficit at the city of 138 million. We really do need to address this through increased investments with increased purchasing power. And in 2019, we started a strategy that would reduce the amount of borrowing to pay for new assets to reduce the debt payment. But as the years have been progressing, the yearly debt payment have gone from 3 million, so 2.559, in the operating budget to 2.3 million. That was our yearly debt cost. That is not to buy new machinery, it is simply to pay for old purchases. So we've decreased it $700,000 yearly payment. Keep in mind that this expense is not to purchase, as I said. So with the yearly decreases you see here, the city has been increasing its purchasing paid cash. as well as the total capital budget. So this enables increased purchasing power, since when purchased cash, the money goes towards direct capital instead of having a portion that goes for interest. So when we had done the capital budget last year, the initial plan was to pay $500,000 cash and borrow $700,000 for the total $1.2 million. But the budget proposed here today is to pay cash an additional $233,000 and an additional $840,000 for the total increase of $1.1 million. And the reasoning for the long-term borrowing, we didn't decrease the $700,000 because, as we said, we have an infrastructure deficit. So we had planned to borrow $700,000. We kept it to $700,000 because then we would have had to cut on either roads or equipment that were desperately needed. And the variance really comes from the $840,000 that for that additional funding. As for the cash, well, we said that when we had savings and interest and long-term debt payments that we would increase the budget. Well, this is the reflection of that. So obviously we decreased from close to $3 million to 2.3. We decreased it by $700,000. Well, we have $700,000 paid cash through the budget. So it's a direct reinvestment. After all of this comes together, you can see the capital reinvestment plan over a span of 18 years of 15 years from the year 2024. The reason why it's 15 is because the last project we just presented would be financed over 15 years. So if we added an amount, obviously it's going to, we have to wait until that one's paid. You can see in 2021, the total debt cost was close to $3 million, and it translated in capital budget for interim financing of $1.1 million. And in 2022, there was a decrease of $355,000 in debt expense. And using the surplus from prior years of $1.2 million, we paid cash, and $1 million was paid through borrowing for a total of budget of $2.3 million. And then in 2023, the debt payment decreased again at $2.5 million, and the base budget was again increased from the 1.1 base budget to 1.2 million, with a lower portion financed through long-term borrowing. In 2024, there is again a decrease of 180 in debt payment expense, so we are increasing the capital budget accordingly. The same thing is planned for 2025 all the way through 2039, where the estimated savings will be reinvested in increased capital budget. And as old debt repayments end, we increase the capital budget all the way up to $3 million in capital yearly. Any questions, comments on the general?
I have to say, bravo. The fact that we're paying $733,000 cash, you know, based on the presentation and the request, and we're able to purchase everything cash and be able to do more eventually as the years go by. It's really nice to see. And we do have Deputy Mayor Anderson that was lit up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question. You know how you normally come in with your little package, choice A, choice B, choice C? I don't see that this year like I see. So are you comfortable this year with all of these projects?
Normally I come with options,
Yeah.
with priority 1, 2,
Right,
and 3.
right, that's
and I
what
said,
it was,
okay,
priority,
these are the
yeah.
ones where we
Yeah.
balance, and these are
Yeah.
the 2. So we did increase the budget. We did do the exercise as staff to say, okay, we need to cut this. So that was my goal of that meeting, is we need to balance with the initial amount that we have. Then we started looking at the additional savings that we had. We added with the savings that these pieces of equipment would create operationally.
Okay.
So yes, we have that increase, but yet in the operational budget, we'll be able to decrease some places, so it nets
Gotcha.
each other out.
Okay.
And the cost, for example, Case Irving, the sound system, the cost, if it fails, is so exponentially high that it would be non-financially technically responsible to pay the rental versus having the new one that will last multiple years, for example. So we took into consideration the cost that was added, the savings that would create operationally, and the additional savings in debt. And yes, I am comfortable with this amount. If not, you would still see the option 1, 2, 3.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yes.
just double check with.
Yes.
Okay.
That finance plan still meets above and beyond. When you look at the until 2039, it still meets above and beyond the target that we had set for last year.
Okay, perfect. Great, thank you.
Perfect. Well, Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Seeing Mr. Wilbur's here, and we're looking at quite a amount of money for the sound system for the Casey Irving. I find now there's certain sections that you can't hear at. You can't hear the announcer, and clearly you can't hear them. With this new system, not only replace what's there, but it will be an improvement so that we can hear from all over, you know.
Mr. Wilbur?
The current sound system that we have in the building was actually used when the building was constructed, just to give you an idea of its age. And it is on the verge of failure, and it would be a complete replacement with state-of-the-art equipment. So the current challenges that we have with sound quality and sound distribution in the arena would certainly be solved through this project.
And the screens, would they go back up again to help with that? You know, like the used to have a screen in each corner with the sound system going, and you could hear the people talking and see them.
Those screens were ultimately replaced by the big jumbotron that was installed
okay.
a number of years ago.
Oh, okay, so that's, thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think it's a good strategy to, whether it's a sound system at Casey Irving or an HVAC unit, not to leave it expire or get beyond repair, and then we're faced with that. Just a strategy for now and going forward, something to consider until the point of no return, I guess, what I'm getting at.
I fully agree with the
Having
infrastructure.
said that, I'm glad that, yeah, it's being
With the
addressed.
infrastructure deficit that we do have, we've had no options but to have assets not replaced, because they're getting older faster than we can replace them, right? At one point it was booming, it was growing, sure, everything, financing for government at one point probably in this lifetime happened a lot at the same time, but now they're all becoming at end of life also at the same time. So and that's not just us. That's a problem that you hear when you talk to other municipalities. The infrastructure deficit is definitely one of the most significant issue for many years to come for municipalities.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I think the Titans would be happy if we have a better sound system in there. All right, we're good to move on to the next. I think we're going to capital budget utility fund.
All right. Well, same as the general fund, we start with, this is the list, but I will let Mr. Abernathy, because other than telling the name, I have no idea what it is.
All right, excuse me. So starting off at our water treatment plant, most of our stuff is basically water and sewer related. Obviously, it's the utility department, but a lot of it is plant related and kind of facility related as opposed to water and sewer upgrades. But we do have that St. Anne Street and Chaleur Street major upgrades, so that's the pipes in the ground bit. The rest of this is basically equipment at our water treatment plant. So starting off with the lamella pack replacement at our water treatment plant. So we have two primary clarifiers at the water treatment plant. This lamella pack was installed in 2008. The recommended lifespan on these things is 10 years. And what's happening is basically a large honeycomb that allows the water to settle in a uniform manner. So it's a large honeycomb. It's black plastic. It's become brittle. It's starting to break. And when it breaks, those pieces of plastic get sucked into the sand recycling pumps. That shuts everything down. We can't make water anymore. So since it happens twice a year or so, but it's been happening more frequently over the last little while, so going with the manufacturer's recommendations to go ahead and replace those at a cost of $150,000 is our request. All right. So also at the water treatment plant, what you're looking at here in this slide is our high lift pumps. So these are the pumps that provide the pressure in the system throughout the entire system. And just on the other side of that back wall is our clear well. So that's our reservoir for our treated water. So there's a room there 3 times the size of this room that's just full with treated clean water. It comes through that wall, through those pumps, pressurizes into the system. In order for us to maintain those pumps, we need to be able to stop that water from coming through the wall. And the valves that are in place to do that are from 1976, and they don't work. So we can't operate. We can't do any maintenance on those pumps right now, so we need to replace those isolation valves that'll allow us to work on those pumps. So that's at a cost of $60,000 there. So the next one on the docket is a backwash blower rebuild kit. So you'll see 2 blowers here. These are the blowers that provide the air scour for our filter bed. So just like a Brita water filter, if you run the water back through it, it kind of cleans out the debris that had been filtered out. Our filters operate very much in the same manner. You need air to blow back through them to kind of loosen everything up and clean them out. These blowers are original to the plant from 1974, I believe. One of them is still operating, but it's at end of life. We're looking to rebuild the second one, so we don't need to replace it. That first one that I just talked about is beyond rebuild. It's end of life. We're going to be coming probably next year or the year after for a full replacement of that one, but it's a cost of $100,000. The second one's still in good condition. We're able to rebuild it for a price of $35,000, so we're really looking at extending the life of that blower as opposed to having to replace it sooner rather than later. So a cost of $35,000 for a rebuild kit, and most of that work would be done in-house by our guys. The chlorine tank emergency shutdown. So what you're looking at right now is chlorine gas cylinders. That is in an isolated room. If we lose our chlorine system, we cannot treat water at the water treatment plant. So if there is ever a leak in any of those lines, we need to be able to shut down those cylinders so that they don't all just expel into the atmosphere. So it's basically a recommended industry standard from the people that installed the chlorine system there. It's a safety measure for our employees and for the public as well. I mean, a major chlorine leak at the water treatment plant is a pretty serious event, so we want to make sure that we can avoid and mitigate any risk there by having a shutdown system. So that's there at a cost of $175,000. Lift station number 5, header pipe in the wet well. So this is the lift station down in Côte Bleue area. There's a graphic there on the left. It's the best thing I could find that would show you what we're looking at. That cone-shaped piece of equipment at the bottom is the actual lift pump that sends the sewage out of the station, and it sends it out via that blue pipe on the left. That's the header pipe that sends the sewer out of the station. That station sends the sewer at quite an elevation, so there's quite pressure in those pipes, and they've let go multiple times over the last couple of years. There's 3 headers there, and 2 of them have let go. The other one's built in the same manner, so if we lose those, we're in really big trouble. So we need to replace all 3 of those at $160,000. When they did let go, they were just patched. They weren't replaced. So they need to be done so we can maintain service there. So again, at a cost of $160,000. So this is just a rehash of Chaleur Street and St. Anne Street, explaining the full rebuilds for the water and sewer. We're also doing storm separation there as well. So we're reducing the amount of storm water that's going to our wastewater treatment plant, hopefully reducing overflows there as well. You see that current project that's going on to reduce overflows right now. This will add to that as well. That's it. Any questions? Oh, I have another one. Okay. Questions first, or? I know it's a little more technical on the utility side.
Hold on, Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll stick with the infrastructure keeping up. We have to keep up pumps, valves, the water supply quality. That's key. We'll talk about that more, obviously, the water and sewer later, but that's very important. It's not glamorous stuff, but you got to have that, or we have nothing. Very important to keep up.
I agree, Councillor Knowles. It's something, it's not something that we see,
It's
but
not glamorous or people see, but very critical, very important.
I agree.
right.
So, it's very expensive to keep running
Oh,
this
yes.
city when we just started. All right.
The only reason why this slide is back there is the same slide as earlier, is simply to point again that the utility fund, that one will be the 40%, so it's the counterpart of what we presented for the general fund. So this is how the financing goes for the utility part as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. So moving on to some equipment. We're looking again to keep turning that fleet over. We've got multiple trucks down at Public Works in the utility department, 557 and 514, which are again from 2006, 2007 Ford Rangers. They've done their time where they're being patched over and over and over again. So 2 units replaced there at a cost of $120,000. A skid steer with attachment. We have a current skid steer down at Public Works right now. It's been patched, over patch, and our fleet techs are basically telling us that this thing is ready to blow. and it's patched probably for the last time, so if it goes again, it'll probably be end of life for it. So the uses for this piece of equipment are to blow fire hydrants, to do shouldering. The request that we're looking for with the $250,000 includes a milling machine, a grader attachment, a plow blade, and a blower. So our current milling machine is being run by a trackless unit from 2003 that's beyond bad shape. It's leaking oil, it's been broken in half and welded back together multiple times. It's the only unit we have with deep reduction drive that's able to run the milling machine. So we really need to get something else that will be able to run a milling machine for us, and this unit will do that. All right.
Mr. Abernathy, that machine is not for sidewalks, is it? Or can it be used for sidewalks?
It can, yes.
You can, eh? 'Cause-
I think we have sweeper on there. No? Oh, yes, sweeper with pickup bin. So basically, this year was a particularly bad year for grit on the road as well for sweeping. So, and our current operation is basically just brooms on these things and on our tracklesses. And that just sends the dirt out into the road. So, which then needs to be followed up by the street sweeper to pick up that dirt. This price here includes a unit that'll actually sweep into a bin, which will be able to go and dump instead of sending it onto the road first and having to pick it up. So it's to do it once instead of twice. It's a big, expensive unit, but it will save a lot of work for our actual sweeper unit.
Okay, so, and then for the winter with the sidewalks, because winter is coming, that's the reality. We bought a new machine to clean the sidewalks, but we still have an old one that's in, because when I see them, I can tell which one would clean the sidewalk. So, how are those?
So that one from 2003 that runs our milling machine, that's also a sidewalk cleaning machine. So that's 2003, we have a 2006, we have a 2009, we have a 2014, and a 2017. So there's quite a few units there, but one of them is completely done. It's literally bandaged with absorbent pads to not leak oil all over the place. And then we also have a mini loader, which is able to work on sidewalks as well. We've rearranged our operation a little bit so that our sidewalk machines are not having to go all the way to East Bathurst to load up with salt and sand. A few years ago, we had made a request for a salt shed at Public Works. So there was a garage built there where we have salt and sand at Public Works. This unit will be able to load those sidewalk machines at Public Works as well. So really a multi-function machine that we need across the board. You'll also see grader attachment on there. We do have, I don't think we've done a grading program in the city since I started in 2008, 2009. So there's really a lot of spots in town where the shoulders are starting to drop down below. We need to get back on that. With this piece of equipment, be able to do that as well.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Pettigrew and then I'll go to council. Mr. Pettigrew?
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, I was going to ask if Mr. Abernathy could give a little more on the grader attachment, but also is it going to be used for some road construction or part of the work as well, just to give an idea of what it'll be used for?
For sure. The utility cuts that we do, right now we're grading those by hand. We're using a backhoe and a string line. Really kind of a rudimentary way of doing it, not really effective, and really doesn't give us the best job. The guys do a great job at it, but you really need that straight grader blade edge to be able to give a proper job and give our paving crews the best opportunity to do the best job that they can whenever they come along. So that finished grade on the asphalt is only as good as the prep work. So having that grader attachment is going to seriously improve that. But also for some of these road rebuilds we're doing, some of the smaller ones like Couture, this is the type of thing that we could do with this unit as well. We could grade entire streets with it. It's a fairly remarkable piece of machinery. So, yeah.
That's good. Councillor Willett?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, the milling machine and that, so we'll be able to use those on the utility cuts
Yes.
and that. So.
Yeah, and our current unit is stationary in front of the trackless, so like the guys have to put a 2x4 down in the hole and then drive on that. Like this will actually be able to articulate and move and kind of get at that right angle to get that nice pass instead of having to do that on it. So it should be a significantly better piece of machinery for us. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor
right.
Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Mr. Abernathy, through you, have we thought of going to smaller vehicles rather than just half-ton trucks? Like when I go to the gas pump there and it costs me $100 to fill my SUV, and I see my friends next door paying $100 for half a tank in their truck, and sometimes two in the full. And I look around town and I see a lot of delivery vans that have gone down in size and smaller SUVs. Is there any way that we could fit some of those into our operation so that the ones that don't need to haul a lot of equipment, just people or a person back and forth to a job to check, that we could switch the vans or something smaller? Because I hear over and over again, the price of fuel is killing us, it's hurting bad, and it hurts in our asphalt too. But you ever considered that with, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're working really hard to get, most of our one-ton vehicles now are all crew cabs, so we're having everybody travel together on job site in the crew cab that's hauling all the gear as well. Hauling all the gear is the problem, right? We need something that'll be able to haul trailers and be efficient with crews and trailers. So going down a size, there's not really much that's smaller, that's more fuel efficient than what we're getting. We're getting 2.7 liter engines. We're not getting the big V8s in any of these vehicles here. So, you know, they're still over 300 horsepower. They're able to haul any trailers that we have. But if you look at the downsizing to a GMC Canyon or a Ford Ranger or something like that, they're no better on fuel than these ones are, right? So you're giving up that towing capability and that capacity inside the cab, but you're not gaining anything.
Yeah,
so.
most of our vehicles do double duty, and they haul as well as just
Exactly.
drive people to work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, okay, so we're good to keep going.
All right. Excellent.
So same as the other format for the general capital fund, the utility fund unfortunately does not have as much cash amounts in the column, with the exception of the water sewer one for Chalaran and Saint Anne. It would all be through boring. That little 5,400 for cash, that's really the counterpart of the 40% of the 13,000 for that same project. And then through interim financing, 1.5 million. So for a total of cash 5,400, long-term borrowing 1.5, and interim 1.5 as well. So how does that fit in? Same as earlier, long-term borrowing on the 7 years. That's with the added interest of 23,000. We would repay 178 after the 7 years is done. For the 10 years, there's a borrowing of 795,000. The interest 178 for a 973 total paid by the end of the 10 years. And that's why we try to decrease, because I'm looking at these, for example, the 252,000 for the 20-year term. I mean, that would be a nice new machine for that same amount. But when we divide it between the 15 years, all of these amounts put together, the yearly payment, the equipment that are there, we would pay more money on them than what we pay on the interest. So that's also part of the analysis when we choose the equipment that we put on there. So the 560 would be the 40% of the Charlotte Street Saint Anne project for the 20-year term. And then it's the same thing for the line of credit. It's the 6.2 interest rate right now. And we would, as soon as we have the ability to do a claim or transfer something to the long-term financing, even midway, and then redo a second debenture round, we will take it off our interim financing as much as possible, because our interest rate on debentures right now, we used to be able to get 1%, 1.5, 1.2. Right now, our debentures that are coming in are coming at 5%, and our line of credit is at 6.2%. So as soon as we can shift it to a debenture and start repaying it instead of leaving it pending on an interest on our interim financing, we're really planning our working capital as close as possible to reduce that cost, because we want to do something as much as possible on the equipments on the streets as much as possible, instead of just interest for something that's just pending there that we could have moved on. For the budget, the initial budget was simply $750,000 long-term borrowing, but the first $750,000 is still there for the same reason. Deficit infrastructure would be difficult to cut on these pieces of equipment that Mr. Abernathy presented. There's a $200,000 additional, but it's not really additional compared to what was budgeted. It's because they're saving in projects that are finishing for 2023 and a little bit before. So we're canceling those approvals, or those borrowing approvals, and we're just reapplying them to something new instead of just doing nothing with it. It was already planned in our budgets for those financing for the previous year, so we're taking those balances and reapplying it to simply increasing for this year for 950 total, really. And then the real outlayer is the 560, that is that big funding that came in. And as you can see, the debt cost, the same table we haven't been able to pay cash, as we said, for in the same capacity as a general fund. However, it doesn't mean that we don't have a capital reinvestment strategy for the utility fund. It's simply that it's had to be delayed for specific reasons. So when you look at 2024 lines and earlier before, you can see that the projects that we've had and the funding that we've had have had for impact of increasing what we repay as debt payment every year. However, when you look at 2026, you start to have a decrease. That's because we have a major loan from CMHC that is coming to the end of its term in 2025. So once that last payment comes in, then we have the capability to start doing the same thing as a general fund, where we can find the savings and reinvest it into the paid cash column and increase the utility capital budget ultimately by the end of this. I'd like to increase it a lot more, but at least we have something that we can start working with.
So we have something to look forward to in 2025.
Hopefully. That last payment we'll celebrate.
Yes, we'll buy coffee.
Yes.
Do we have any questions for Madame Gauvin?
Before we move on to the other budgets, just in case, I want to make sure that I grasp the comments that I've heard, especially for the general budget, because on the 25th, sure, we look at the general operating budget, but we bring back these budgets in case there was any discussions. Am I hearing that you would like to see this for the street paving? So we total street paving, we have 5.3 million for that big Chala Street, then we have 200 for Basin and 200 for Reardon. Did you want to see the priority, like other types of streets that would be recommended by engineering? I don't know, like a top 4? Is that what I'm hearing, that you would like to see at second options, or or are you okay if for the next formats that we keep these ones status quo?
All right, I'll go to council. We do have a question from Councillor Leblanc.
Thank you, Madame Mayor. Merci. Moi, ma question, c'est surtout pour Matt Abernathy, Madame la mairesse. Est-ce qu'on a le manpower si on entame plus de rues que vous avez déjà prévu pour l'année 2024?
Bonne question. Une très bonne question.
Là, tout de suite, on l'a pas. Par exemple, on planifie de faire un autre round d'engagement dans le mois de mai pour un autre 4, je pense, 4 employés au Public Works. Ça, c'est dans le budget operational déjà. C'est pas un nouveau ask. C'est vraiment pour nous ramener à ce qu'on était avant. Ces projets-là, on parle de 2 semaines, 2 à 3 semaines chaque. Là, cette année, il y a le de St. Mary's, était un petit peu plus longue, mais avec l'expérience qu'on a eue à cette heure, la couture, la basin, je pense qu'on va être capable de vraiment rater le temps pour le faire. On est en train de regarder ce qu'on a accompli dans notre programme de patching de UDF pour cette année, pour faire sûr qu'on a la main-d'œuvre pour faire ces projets-là. Mais on est confiant qu'on va être capable de les faire vraiment avec le scheduling de l'avoir fait au fin juin, début juillet. C'est vraiment avant les vacances commencent, puis on est pas mal sûr qu'on va être correct pour les faire, oui.
Donc, là, c'est un petit peu plus Mme Gauvin aussi. Là, c'est sûr que moi, j'aimerais voir les autres rues aussi, là, la liste de priorités. Mais quand même, là, probablement, on a un beau budget à date. Là. Je te félicite pour ça. Si on rajoute des rues, par exemple, il faut rajouter du cash. Hein?
Quand je mentionnais des rues, ça serait remplacer ces rues-là par une autre.
OK, ça,
pour rester dans le même montant.
Ça ne serait pas du nouveau cash?
Ouais.
Non.
Non, OK.
Parce que j'ai pleinement confiance à M. Abernathy et son équipe. Jusqu'à date, tout comme on n'a jamais donné de raison de ne pas avoir confiance à son équipe. Mais c'est certain que ce ne serait pas une mauvaise chose pour nos connaissances aussi, qu'on choisisse de les faire maintenant ou les autres années à suivre, juste pour s'assurer qu'on est au courant. Puis, tu sais, des fois aussi, on a des conversations avec les citoyens, de regarde, ces rues-là, ça s'en vient, là, ça va être dans les prochains budgets, évidemment, pour cette année. Et tant qu'on peut faire d'une année, là, mais moi, je pense que ça serait appréciable de les voir.
Si je peux ajouter un petit quelque chose,
Oui, allez-y.
Avec la main-d'œuvre qu'on avait cette année, comme on avait des situations où on avait manque de main-d'œuvre de temps en temps, on a vraiment eu un surplus dans notre budget d'asphalte. C'est vraiment là qu'on a été chercher pour faire la chemin couture. l'année prochaine, on prévoit, avec tous les chemins qui ont été asphaltés, patchés pendant les 2 dernières années, on est vraiment plus en avance qu'on était dans le passé, avec ce qu'on fait pendant l'hiver avec le Bagella. Si on peut vraiment compléter notre programme de patching avant le mois de juillet, on peut, l'année prochaine, au mois de juillet, mois d'octobre, avec le comité d'efficience comme on avait fait cette année pour la couture, on peut amener un autre chemin, là, pouvoir par un autre 50, 60 000 peut-être, puis en faire une autre. Là. Puis même s'il y a c'est une bonne année pour la neige ou quelque chose de même, on peut vraiment prendre cet argent-là puis l'investir là-dedans aussi. Là. Ça, c'est toujours bien avoir un petit buffer là, à la fin de l'année dans le budget d'asphalte. Je pense qu'on a encore 90 000 là-dedans. Ça, c'est un gros budget d'asphalte. Ce serait difficile de tout mettre ça. Alors, il y a de l'argent là aussi qu'on peut aller chercher. Là. Voilà.
Enfin, souhaitons que les choses adonnent bien et qu'on réussisse à en faire un, même 2 de plus.
Ouais.
Merci beaucoup.
Okay, on va aller à Councillor Legacy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just noticed in the 5-year capital plan here, starting back in 2025, we've included numbers from DTI for every single year going to 2028. I know last I heard it was 1 every 3 years. Have we noticed anything from the province to say that it'll go back to the annual amounts being given, or is this just
So, I don't know if it was last public meeting or the ones before. The 5-year capital plan was presented to be sent to the province, so we got a request so that we could have the projects identified. So we do not have a position from the province that they will change at it every year or every 3 year or whichever. But these numbers that are included in the 5-year capital plan are the ones that we sent to the province. So because we sent it to the province, we include it, but obviously by the time we get to 2024, we would get news of what it is. So that in this 5 year, once we balance the 2024, all the years after that, we will adjust to see, because if something changes for 2024, we kind of adjust going forward. But these are there up until we have a confirmation, never know, but because they were submitted, if they say yes, we have to be ready to front it. So really that's what these amounts are, but we do not have confirmation that these will go forward, and certainly not if it would be at annual if it does go forward.
okay?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Councillor Willett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is, first of all, I'd like to see a list of the streets, and that, same thing as Councillor LeBlanc. The other thing is the 8% increase in the assessment, is that included in this budget, or
That it will be on October 25th.
on a what?
October 25th in the
October
general
25th.
operating fund, yes.
Okay.
Answer your question. All right. So it may not be a bad idea to have a list, and then we'll be able to know, and then as council, and then, you know, Mr. Abernathy, your team did such a great job, and you're able to do couture, then we would have a list, and we would have a street that if there's time and there's funds left over, hopefully we'll have a mild winter, we'll save even more money, and not too mild for the Skidoo, sorry, but, you know, reasonable, so we can have a little bit of savings and then be able to do a little bit more next year. All right, good. On est prêt?
All right, so we'll switch our minds from capital, so it's those big equipments and these streets and all of that, and we will start diving into the utility operating fund. So first and foremost, expenses in the utility operating fund will shift as the expenses in the general fund settle. Some transfers are percentage-based and are interrelated between both funds, especially when we talk about the administrative charges that are charged from the general fund to the utility fund. If we haven't finished the general fund yet, that number can still change as we go. So everything up here is still moving as we finish the other ones. So the total proposed expense budget is $7.9 million, which is an increase of $102,000 compared to 2023. And when we look at the environmental health section, the increases total for water supply is $82,000, and the administration has increased by 25.6, and this is because that's one of the places where the administrative transfer from the general fund that is charged impacts. So there's an increase of 19.5 additional charges from the general fund, and the rest is due for a regular salary increase of $6,000. Purification and treatment has an increase, it has a decrease here of $69,000, but when you look at the variances, there's $48,000 in miscellaneous services, and that includes clear well cleaning for $17,000, arc flash study for $26,000, and a purchase of new chlorine analyzer for $14,000. But there are savings in RPC samples for $10,000 and additional transfer from purification and treatment to power and pumping. So between these line items, because we can't divide it as the expenses are going, there's some transfers that are done between the lines. So there's additional transfers from purification and treatment to the other lines, which are source of supply and purification and treatment, for which nets for the $69,000. Source of supply has no significant change. Transmission and distribution has a total increase of $65,000. So there's an increase of $89,000 in employee distribution. So depending on where management decides of the jobs that we'll be doing, the employees are associated costs to these places. So this is one of the places where they decided to distribute additional money there. There is also an increase in miscellaneous services and water network for $20,000 due to higher equipment costs. This is countered by a decrease in supplies for $20,000, asphalt and concrete for $14,000, as well as additional transfer from power and pumping. Power and pumping has an increase of $95,000, but really it's because more money is taken from the other sections and put there. There's not really, the rest of the budget is basically the same. Billing and collecting has a savings of $37,000, but that is because there was too many temps budgeted in 2023. So it's the same staff. There was just too many temporary employees allocated by mistake in that one for 2023. That's being adjusted. Wastewater disposal administration is the same. So 50%, as we said, from the general fund is going to water. Well, the other 50% is going to wastewater, so 19.5 for the transfers, and then the balance is a regular increase from employees. Wastewater collection system has a decrease in miscellaneous services for $10,000, and the rest is due to salary redistribution to other sections. Wastewater lift station has an increase of $48,000. There is higher transfer from the wastewater treatment plant for $65,000, countered by savings in supplies by $10,000. Wastewater treatment and disposal has an increase of $41,000, but this includes an increase in wage distribution of $62,000, an increase in electricity of $40,000, and an increase in supply of $16,000, but it's countered by transferred to other funds. Equipment repair has an increase of $14,000, and this is due to vehicle repairs and parts. And the cost of tire services has been increasing, and the backhoe is requiring additional repairs. And there's also a change in level of service, which requires winter tires for paving in the winter. So when we look at the capital budgets that we just presented, obviously, when we see that an equipment is starting to cost higher repairs every year, and it would cost higher than the expense to reimburse it, and that's when it gets higher on the priority list as well.
Madame Gauvin, are you good to take a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Burnett?
Thanks again, Madam Mayor. Could you go back to the previous slide, please?
This
I didn't get you in time on that one. Billing and collecting, how are we doing with billing and collecting? People have been asking me about the readers that are outside of the house, so that the reader doesn't have to go into the house anymore. And some said it's taken quite some time to get one of those readers put on the outside of their house. Are we improving that service to the taxpayer?
I am actually very happy you asked that question. There's a whole presentation following just this one, just on that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm very happy you asked that question.
Okay,
I will be
yeah.
very happy to answer that one.
Yeah, because some people say they've been waiting and waiting to get that little box put on their house, so they didn't have to have people coming in all kinds of weather. The other question I have is for the treatment purification. I've been facing different questions about the color of our water, and I know there's a number of different reasons. And previous to this slide here, you had also in capital where we're going to improve the filtration system, and it was compared to a Brita in the fridge. And will that help clarify, along with the flushing program that seems to be very active, because people have been asking me, why are we running water all over the street? And I said, that's to clear the pipes and make everything clear again, So, but anyway, are we going to have better purification. That's the word I'm looking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. So our purification itself at the water treatment plant is second to none. It's pretty much as good as it's going to get. What we're experiencing is issues in our distribution system, right? It's the grit and corrosion and whatnot in our pipe system that whenever we have changes in velocity in the water, it stirs up what's in the pipes. So in case anyone's wondering, the water treatment plant, quality of our water, living water treatment, second to none. There's no issue there whatsoever. To answer your question, no, there won't be an improvement in the water treatment plant quality of our treatment because it's already where it needs to be. We're just making sure that those machines continue to work, right? That's it. It's not going to get any better. It's just going to make sure they continue to work. Now, for the, if you look at the transmission and distribution line, you see an increase of 65,000. That's the flushing programs that you were talking about. So we're looking at increasing our UDF that we're going to be doing next year. We're hoping to make our way into East Bathurst next year. It's been a significant issue for us this year, and so that flushing program is really what's going to kind of scrub those walls of those pipes and get that grit out of there and hopefully improve the consistency of everybody's water quality. Now, the booster station over in West Bathurst as well is going to improve that significantly for the residents of Parkwood Heights area. So I do also have some good news about that project. We're looking at commissioning by the end of November this year. So instead of being in the spring, we should have that buttoned up and operational before Christmas. So
Really?
good news there.
Oh my gosh, people in Parkwood Heights are going to be so happy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful news. Oh.
Thank you for the update, and thanks for the answering that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to take up much time. Just want an explanation. Source of supply. I know it's not a big ticket item, 40 to 45,000. What expense is associated with that source of supply? Just an explanation.
Sure, no problem. So there's pretty significant testing that needs to be done in our watershed to make sure that the watershed area is protected and to make sure that the water courses that are feeding our reservoirs are good quality water and there's nothing there. We are running into geosmin issues out in the system. We're running into high nutrients making their way into our reservoir. So there's some things going on outside the city that make their way into our reservoir that we need to keep an eye on and make sure. And so just the cost of sending.
So it's
those
more
samples.
Testing.
More testing, yeah.
Okay.
Sending those samples away
Yeah.
to Fredericton. There's costs associated with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Right? Okay, we're good to keep going.
Okay. Fiscal services. So when we look at the section from fiscal services, obviously the utility fund only has environmental health services and fiscal services. It doesn't have that much. The total debt charge for utility is 2.3 million budgeted for 2024 versus 2.308. So there's an increase of 35,000. This is to repay active debentures for old projects using borrowing. There's a cost for discounts also associated to borrowing, but that's a little bit in a few lines, and that's the cost of acquiring the debentures when we go out. Transfer to other funds. The transfer to capital water. So the first line you see 17,000. So that resolution should be coming up soon. We have federal agreements for the water treatment plant upgrade that we had a few years back. So we have to put 17,000 into the capital reserve fund for repairs if it happens. So that amount we add 17,000 every year, and if there's something that we need to pull out, then we have access to that. The same type of transfer is also the same thing for the capital wastewater system. Those are 3 other agreements that we have with the federal government for upgrades that they did with funding. So the first one is Sewage Lift Station 1 and 8 for 13,500, Yahal and Queen Elizabeth Drive for 10,000, and Bayshore and Karen Drive for 6,000. That's what makes a total of 29,500. Then you have the transfers to operating water and operating wastewater. We do not have an operational reserve in the utility fund. We're hoping to start one this year. So before the end of the year, we'll be recommending transfers to the reserve because in case of emergency, we have none. when it comes to operations. So we're trying to build it, and it would also help when we get financing. So for example, these big projects that we have to put 1.4 million, well, the portion for the utility fund is 560,000. Well, if we had that reserve fund, we would be able to pay for, to grab something from there, but right now we have not. So we're trying to start one in 2023, and we'd recommend continuing that for 2024 as a contingency for the utility. Other fiscal, so the discounts I was saying, the cost of acquiring debentures, that's a small decrease from last year because we've been adding less, so obviously the cost of acquiring them is decreasing as well. The provision on loss of accounts receivable, bad debt has been increasing a little bit, so we need to adjust it. We'll talk about that a little bit in the other section. And sick leave and retirement, that's our post-retirement obligations of the city, so that's the same amount as last year for 40,000. When we put all of this together, deficits and surpluses from past years, so when we do incur a deficit, we have to repay it in 4 years. So in 2018, we had a deficit of 391, which we have a schedule of 4 years ending this year. 2019, we had that deficit of 721, so starting to repay it 2021, the last year of repayment will be 2024. And the deficit of 380 that we had in 2020 started repayment in 2022, final payment 2025. So you can see that 2022 and 2023 in the utility budget, there's quite a bit of expense just to repay old past year deficits, starting to decrease in 2024 and 2025. We had small surpluses in 2021 and 2022. And those, to compensate for the deficits, we're also splitting it to try to compensate a little bit. So that is 2 different line items into the budget. Now for revenues. So you will not see in this part a lot of revenues because it's part of the following presentation. This table shows the revenues that were budgeted for 2023. In 2022, as well as the actuals from 2022 and 2021. So although the fees have been increased, the projected revenues have not materialized. This means the fee structure needs to be looked at, and to do so, staff has done a water and sewer rate study, which is the next topic to be presented, and depending on the chosen rate structure, the revenues would be included into the next time we present the follow-up. Those would be integrated into this utility section. So before we move to the next.
Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Why were the deficits so high, particularly in 2019, like almost $750,000 that 1 year? What?
We had a lot of transfers that were done at the time where we were transferring money from the general fund, especially for the fire costs. So there's a regulation where to maintain the cost of maintaining the fire hydrants and everything from the utility fund, the water and everything, you can charge from the general fund to the utility fund. So it was 900, it was close to $1 million. So that amount really was higher than what it should be to maintain that. So that amount was decreased to 500,000 in 1 year shot. The second amount that was stopped is because there was a recurring payment for storm sewers from the general fund to the utility fund as well as revenues. It was showing, those 2 amounts were showing as revenues into the utility fund.
So we'll be caught up in.
And that was
still
all,
a little bit of overhang for a couple more years. Clear that.
That
up,
was completely. It was done. We made so much work to the storm sewers. We shouldn't have been transferring these revenues anymore. But you know what it is? After a number of years, repeat. So when we did that cleanup, we took 400 and something from the fire cost revenue from utility, and we put it back to the general fund where it was supposed to be in a storm sewer, 355,000. So add those 2 amounts, decrease in revenue in 2019, but at least the revenues were in the proper fund.
Okay.
So that's what that was.
Basically reassigning some of the cost to the proper department.
Proper distribution, because the utility fund is user pay. So you shouldn't pay with your taxes, your property taxes, the cost of utilities.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So that was what was kind of happening, not because at one point it wasn't the necessary amount, it's just they hadn't been reviewed. That year they were reviewed and put back in the proper place.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. We're good to keep going. The study.
All right. Gonna change gears. All right. Donc, cette présentation est le résultat d'une étude faite pour l'eau et les égouts, faite par le département de trésorerie et la ville de Bathurst. Puis, le but premier de cette étude est de développer une structure de frais qui fournira le financement des opérations annuelles d'utilité pour l'eau et les égouts. Cette étude vise à mieux comprendre la situation actuelle et à regarder à d'autres options comme modèle de financement pour le maintien du bon fonctionnement d'un système d'eau et d'égouts fiable. Les données que vous allez voir, the data that you will see, obviously we don't have the full year for 2023, so when I mentioned this year, I'm referring to 2022 because you're going to see some refer to the budgets for 2023, but the actual amounts are based on the full year for statistics capability for 2022. So the city of Bathurst currently offers water and wastewater sewer services to 4,556 customers. This requires an extensive distribution network consisting of over 300 kilometers of linear pipes, 23 lift stations, 3 booster stations, a water treatment plant, and a wastewater treatment plant. The city of Bathurst has aging infrastructure and must continue to invest in the renewal of water and sewer system, which are reaching the end of their useful life. So in 2006, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and National Research Council published a study which was called Water and Sewer Rates Full Cost Recovery. It cites, in the past, budgets for water and sewage system within municipalities were typically based on historical trends with inflationary and/or service level adjustments, and in some cases, refinements in regulation on drinking water quality and wastewater discharge quality. This is how we do our budgets typically at the city of Bathurst. Now, as water and sewage system deteriorate and maintenance costs increase, and managers incorporate approaches and tools such as business planning, level of service pricing, and performance benchmarking, historical costs no longer serve as a reliable guide for budgeting. As a result, the gap between what should be spent and what is being spent continues to widen for many. This is not sustainable in the light of ever more stringent regulations, increasing accountability for decision makers and operators. Planning to recover the full cost for these services can help ensure that funding for water and sewage system is sufficient to sustain them indefinitely, and that funds are appropriately spent. A full cost recovery plan can also be developed to promote more efficient use of water, allowing municipalities to defer capacity expansion and reduce costs. Without planning for full cost recovery, the level of service would gradually decline, which is, with aging infrastructure, really is what we're seeing here. As water and sewage system age, as quality and service system level standards increase, and as funding sources change, water and sewage utilities are challenged to develop cost recovery strategies that assure financial sustainability. And this next definition is very, very, very important. Sustainability is defined as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. And that's a definition from the Work Commission on the Environment. And when we say that, you can look at it further. When we look at our debt reimbursement and we say that we're paying for old equipment, those were to meet the needs of the previous generation. So what we're trying to do now is invest on the infrastructure that we are using now without charging our next generation. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. And when we charge for fees, it should be the current generation using the infrastructure that pays for it. So that's what ultimately municipalities are geared on. Ontario are very, very advanced. I think they even have a legislation really associated to all of the sustainability impact and financing of how they will do that. The challenge that a lot of municipalities have is, how do you go from reimbursing previous generations while not charging the next? Without major funding, and when you're in between, you're still paying for the old ones. You can't pay cash for all the new ones. So it's the in-between that's particularly difficult. So we're kind of in that specific spot right now. So the scope of this study was, first of all, assess the current revenue model, examine other revenue model options, and recommending a sustainable revenue model. So first thing that was looked at was financing of its operations for the operational utility fund. This is when you put the surpluses and deficits together, the net of what it does on budgets when we present, this is what it is. So the current financial conditions is not viable. Revenues have not kept up with rising costs such as labor, materials, and maintenance. Due to these increasing expenses, the current revenues are insufficient to finance the utilities operations. So we can see the reconciliation, and really when you look at 2022, that's negative because it was a surplus. Really that surplus was related more to a reduced transfers of the cost from the general fund charged to the utility fund than a reduction or meeting the levels for revenues for that year. So we were quite, it wasn't operations, it was simply transfers charged. Revenue sources. As in other cities, the utility system operates on an enterprise based, with revenues and expenses accounted for separately from the city's general operating fund. It is user pay. Therefore, when you pay for your property taxes, for example, you're not paying for the utility fund. So sometimes they say, well, I pay enough taxes. True, but you're not paying for water and sewer through your taxes. You're paying it through the invoice that you get quarterly from the city. The total revenues for utility operating fund were budgeted at $7.8 million, so that I'm referring to 2023. Out of that amount, approximately 90% is generated through water and sewer services, and 10% is generated by other means. This table here includes the budget for 2023 and 2022. So as you can see, the budgets that we have, for example, if you use 2022, we had budgeted $6.8 million. We collected $6.5 million. So we did have a surplus of 90,000, but it wasn't because we received enough revenues. It was for major projects that ended up not happening. It was for administrative costs, for a whole bunch of other reasons, but it wasn't because the revenue model that we had was functioning for that year. So when we look a little bit further, those revenues, those user fees, are further divided in different types of categories within water and sewer services. The table shows breakdown by customer type, and the city has 4,556 customer accounts, and some customers only receive water services, some only sewage services, and some don't use, they're only having the option to connect, but most of them receive both types of services. Residential accounts make for 92.56%, servicing 4,217 accounts. So that leaves 339 accounts in all of the other categories combined. The municipality of Beresford is a ward within Belle Bay, is considered as one account because there's only one connection and one associated fee. Although there is significant partnership between Belle Bay and City of Bathurst, the city is not responsible for their network, and they pay the connection fee plus the same fee per 1,000 imperial gallons than the properties in the City of Bathurst limits. When we match the revenues versus consumption, if these accounts are translated by category of revenues, the residential properties represent 58.64% of total user fee, but 43.65% of the total consumption for the treatment plant. The average annual user fee, so we often say, well, I pay this much, I pay this much. Well, we took out all of the 4,500 some accounts, and we put them in brackets of 100s. And the highest range that we found was between 700 and 799. Those are the fees for 2022. For the average account, this means a consumption of 27.41 thousand imperial gallons. And if we translate this to 2023 fees, the average charge would be $845 per year. So now we look at the formula. How do we charge? All user fees are charged with the basic premise of a rate per usage and a connection fee. So for billing purposes, when we receive everything, we charge a fixed connection fee. So you will see something that regardless of how much water you use, you will get charged that amount. And then you will get the number of imperial gallons times the rate per unit for that year. So you have that for water, and you have a different rate for sewer, and you add those two together. The table now shown here is demonstrating how the revenue for each section is based on fixed rate, so flat, versus variable rate consumption. Considering that 72% of this is derived from revenue based on variable sales, it would indicate that the expenses would be variable to the same level to justify this type of uniform formula. However, when we look at the last line of the table where it shows the expense distribution, it shows that the expenses are 3% variable and 97% fixed. This indicates that the formula being used is in complete reversal of the expenses of what they reflect. So you end up with something that looks like this. You have fixed connection fees that generate 28% of the revenues, and then you have the consumption, the variable part, which provides 72%. But when you match that with the expenses, the lines are completely crossed. It's 97% fixed and variable 3%. So that was that's the financing part. Then you get into logistical issues. So the billing process is very important to examine because of the costs associated to it, as well as its logistical issues. And Mr. Burnett touched base a little bit on it on some of the comments that we also hear on our end. We'll identify how it works and the issues for every step. So let's start with step number 1. You'll see it's kind of lengthy process. So first of all, the installation of the water meter. In order to determine the consumption portion of the formula, every property has a water meter installed. Throughout the city, there are 10 different types of meters. So you have the outside meters that nobody has to go in. You have the inside meters, and even the inside meters, you have a collection of those. Each meters have different numbers of digits and decimals. So the issue with this step is that out of those meters, the majority is of older generation. They have no digital option, which would be the digital from the outside, and the accuracy is not foolproof as its efficiency diminishes with the year. So don't worry, you're not changing customers more. It's the opposite. The older they get, the slower they get. That's just reality. The meters being installed cost $500 each plus installation. So that's not the salaries or anything. It's just the meter by itself. Although the bylaw states that the owner is responsible to pay for the meter, if the meter was faulty because of old age, there is no charge to the customer. So we absorb that cost if it was faulty. With approximately 4,300 meters throughout the city, changing all of them to a uniform system would mean an investment of $2.2 million, not including labor and changes in the billing system. So after a number of years, these meters would have to be replaced again. So although we would be doing all the city at the same time, after so many years, we have to update them again regardless. And the thing is with meters, there's always new technology coming in. So although you're trying to have all the same ones, there's new ones coming in, different digits, different decimals. Then you do the collection of the reading. So that's where the water meter reader comes in. And they go to every property and they take a reading. Because the city has all of those different meters, 4 different reading devices are required. So that person leaves with a box, and don't know what this screen's with. So that person leaves with a box. It has all the reading devices required, the books, and they leave with a full box of that just to be able to take the readings. Because we have so many accounts, the city has divided the city in 3 zones. Consequently, you're trying to fix a computer?
Yep.
My apologies.
That's all right, keep going.
I can keep going. So every month they do between 1,200 to 1,500 accounts to have the full 4,500 accounts. And they are awarded 10 days to do so at the beginning of the month. The salary for the water meter reader is approximately $25,000 because it's only 10 days out of the month. They do that early on so that the rest of the month, the actual readings can come in, their billing processes can continue. So that's early on. So this issue is not ideal because although we follow all the safety procedures that are recommended, the fact remains that the water meter reader goes alone in households. So we follow protocols. Some household we are equipped with outside e-coders. The person doesn't have to go in. We meet with them to teach them the safety, but they still go in. It also makes people in the households that do not necessarily want to have somebody that they don't know into their household uncomfortable as well. So it creates an issue on both sides. So addressing, yes, the inside is, that's what we see that too. Then, yes.
Actually, they do have on the screen, because I get the screen as well, so the projector is not necessary.
Okay, oh, we're good.
So we're good?
Okay, people can still follow on Facebook, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, just wanna make sure this.
Thank you. So then we get to the input of the readings. So some meters are wired outside of the building where it can be done easily. Some, we have e-coders where the water meter reader simply drives by and it collects the data. Tick, tick, tick as they go by. So on rainy days or days that it's too hot outside, they will concentrate on those types of meters. But most of them are inside the households. And so that creates 3 different scenarios. The first one is if the meter is wired outside, reading is taken digitally by the water meter reader and written in a book. If the meter inside and the owner is present, the water meter reader will go in, take a reading, write it in a book, they will leave. If the person is not at the household, because a lot of people work during the day, obviously, so they can't go in, they leave what we call a blue card, where people can call in their reading or submit it through Service New Brunswick, or call City Hall to submit this. There's an issue because the blue cards can get lost or not returned in timely fashion. Also, the information may not be collected properly by the owner, especially since the blue card cannot reflect all the options within the 10 meters. So we have 10 meters, so we have one generic blue card. So if we do keep the meter system, we would have to upgrade that blue card to be able to include all of those meters. Some have decimals, some do not. So that would be a very complicated blue card. So which ones do you leave? So that also creates an issue. And on top of that, not all property owners actually do know what a water meter is. We often get power from NB Power, their meters. We often get those types of readings. So when we get that in, the reading doesn't necessarily make sense, so then we send somebody to check it out because it does happen. So we have some where it's built with the owner, it's tenants that are present, they don't necessarily follow through. Some do, some don't. Then we get the input of the reading. So once the reading is read, the data is entered in a book. And when I say a book, it's really like a black book with yellow pages inside, and you have a yellow page per property, and there's a line for each reading that are taken for that property, handwritten, and that handwritten, that's put in the book that person took. If they're calling, they take out the book, and they write that reading. That reading is then entered into the system manually, one by one. So you're going to the property, you're writing the reading. If the person's not there, you're bringing the book back for the receptionist. Person calls, reading comes in, takes out the book, writes the reading, puts it back at the end of the month, enters all of that into the system, and then you can work with it. So there is a plan to automate that, but with the number of counts and manual reading, it would require quite a significant project to be able to do that. So in order to get us your message, it's breaking my tea. So in order for us to do that, it would create quite a bit of work. So if we do want to keep the meter system, then we will put the processes forward to bring it. But let's say that we do change the system, then we would adapt the way that we input the data according to that. So staff has been waiting to adjust that inputting method to be automated better once we have a decision of where we want to go. Once that's all done, we review the data. So all the accounts reviewed for completion are done. So there's a lot of manual input. If the data hasn't been collected, the system will automatically estimate based on the last 2 billing periods and do an estimate of what the person normally charges. So obviously, if you've been estimated for a long, long time, the estimates are kind of flawed. If there's an outlier, the person has to spot it and say, okay, there's an outlier there. Might be a leak, might be a typo, might be something. So they do check those out. So if the blue card's not returned, then we have no actual readings. The bylaw states that the city can shut the water off if no actual readings have been received in over 6 months, so 2 billing period. This ensures that we're not estimating based on the wrong numbers. Now, if there's an issue with that, many blue cards need to be left, and not all owners provide readings. Right now, depending on what day you pull out the data, we have between 650 and 750 accounts meeting the 6-month threshold. That increased quite significantly with COVID when we couldn't go in, and people lost the habit of sending the blue cards. So we've seen a peak of the number of estimates that we had for that period, and it's difficult to get back on track. The city does not have the capacity to process all of those required shutoffs. So some have not processed or provided readings in years. So the capacity required to address, if we do want to bring that up to date, would be additional admin staff to prep up shutoff letters, registered mail, or even do calls, plus staff from Public Works to process the shutoff and then reverse process once reading received. So we do all of that process. Listen, we haven't had an estimate. We've been trying to reach you. We're going to start the shutoff process. Well, probably by the time they get the register letter, they will call you in with a reading. So now we have to resend everything and reverse the process back again because we'll be able to open them up again. So it's creating a bit of a hassle. Repairs of meters. So with many aging meters, many of them would benefit to be changed. Either the needle turns slower than required, broken, or outside digital pad doesn't work anymore and need to be changed from the outside. So there are multiple reasons for that. And when a meter repair is required, the water meter reader will flag the account and advise Public Works. If the owner used the outside pad as a habit, so sometimes they've been metered outside for a few years, they're not used to collecting their reading. Let's say that their outside capability breaks or something, they still have the capability to take their reading inside. So what the water meter reader would do is try to advise the customer, the property owner, or if that person is not there, then try to get the utility clerk to reach them or any kind of means to say, hey, you can't get it from the inside. We'll leave a blue card at a very minimum to say you need to start taking it from the inside until we get that fixed, if we can get it fixed. If you're not in the habit of collecting your reading, chances are you're not even going to pay attention to that blue card because it's not in your habit. So many meters have requests to be looked at that the Public Works does not have the capacity to do them all or the budget to change them all. Sometimes there will be customers' requests to look at the meter to justify that there is not a leak, but sometimes it really was a leak, and so we just sent somebody to address the ones that are not faulty, just as much as we sent somebody for the faulty ones. So it's a lot of time for public works staff, and we'll come back to this a little bit later because we do have a little bit more data on that one. Yes.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. C'était juste pour revenir une couple de slides avant, que tu disais qu'il y avait de 650 à 750 comptes qui n'ont pas été enregistrés dans les délais de 6 mois qu'on y donne. Juste une question, est-ce que la majorité de ces gens-là continuent leur paiement quand même?
Oui.
Donc.
Le problème avec ça, vous allez voir le problème avec ces issues-là dans quelques slides.
OK.
Ça fait un énorme problème.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, there's been a problem in the last year or so with some meters, where some people receiving big bills, and we've had to deal with them because of leaks or something else. You went through the slide pretty quickly there about the average bill for...
the average cost?
The average cost, yes. Yeah. So if most homeowners knew the average cost, and then they get their bill, they might figure out right quickly that they've got a bad flush or they've got a bad pipe somewhere or a bad tap that is causing too much water to go through and they're being charged for it. So where would that information be recorded, or is that on the city website so that somebody could tap into city website and say, oh, there the bill, most people's bills are $800 and mine is more, and why, you know?
So the best way I would recommend a citizen to know that, I don't know if you've noticed on your invoice, you have a graph, first and foremost, where if there's a leak or anything where you peak, you will see the graph go up. So that will enable you to spot a leak. The other section of your invoice is on the bottom left, where it says the daily average use. So that, and it shows you the cost. It takes the cost of the water and divides it by the consumption. So it actually gives you the cost, your daily cost. So if you see a spike in your daily cost, that is also something when you compare an invoice to the other. The problem is when we get a lot of estimates, you've had all of this for many years, so you may have had a leak for 2 years because we've been receiving only estimates. And then you sell your property and you're required to send a reading. So then, whoop, you get the real reading. It's, oh, shoot, I had a leak for the past 2 years. Well, you haven't seen it enough closely to be able to spot the trust. So that's where the estimates create a big issue, is because then they have a leak that wasn't addressed, and then it creates a lot of steps afterwards to try to resolve.
So you recommend that the homeowner checks their bill very carefully and looks at that graph and looks at the amount of water, yep.
Yes.
You know, like normal person, I just look at the bill and see what it is and go pay it, you know, and I don't really pay that much attention to that.
I recommend strongly looking at the graph and really sending the actual reading so that if you have a leak, you spot it right away.
Good advice, thank you.
Yes. And it says right here that my average daily cost is $2.32.
Okay.
So you actually see when you get it every 3 months, you can see, and I actually track how we're doing, especially that now that my daughter is at university, back moving home, keep an eye on my water bill. But yeah, everything is broken down, and I think that's when you end up seeing the cost of the, which you only find out after 3 months. That's why with the study, by having a flat rate, we have all kinds of water. I mean, we're not at our full capacity. So if that was to happen, and we've had people, residents coming up to us and say they weren't aware that they had that leak in their bathroom in the basement. Well, it wouldn't matter because they're not going to pay. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm going to start that again because my mic wasn't on.
Sure, you're going again.
Yeah. So what I was just saying is that your daily usage cost on your water bill is right there. And for me, I know that I only pay $2.32 per day. But with the flat rate that they're considering and with the study that they've done, what's good is that if someone has a water leak in their house and there's something in the basement or whatever and they weren't aware of, then coming back and to have to pay or go through that one-time do the application for the one time so we can, cut the bill, because they weren't aware of that water leak, that wouldn't happen anymore. So the flat rate, even if they would have that water leak downstairs, it's not going to change their invoice. They're just going to continue paying the flat rate that they would be paying. So no more of the reading anymore. All residents would have one flat rate. Don't want to take Madame Gauvin's thunder, but there's something good ahead of this.
Interesting.
Just to say, like during COVID, I personally had toilet leaks. Those are the worst. Like the toilet leaks, people don't realize how much that's what creates an increase. But it was during COVID, so I couldn't get a plumber in. So I consciously left the leak going, but you can see my bill. You can see the leak and when I fixed it. But those graphs are, whether you're a company, whether you're anybody, that those graphs in comparison of that same time frame during the year is essential, because obviously it will change versus summer versus winter, so they're essential.
Yep, go right ahead.
Thank you. My other question is, sometimes when we have pipes freezing in the wintertime, our operations department will tell people just leave your tap on and just let it roll. So how much water is that going to use? Like some people say, no way, I'm going to leave my tap on all night. But it stops the freezing,
Yeah.
And then yet talk to some other people in operations, say it's not that expensive to leave that tap on for a month, So what's the truth there?
We calculated at one point it wasn't that much money, but the thing is when you leave your tap running, it's because you have received a letter from the city to leave your tap running. So so you take your reading at the beginning, and then when you received a letter to stop doing that process, you need to call City Hall with a new reading, and you will not be charged for the part that you left it running. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Abernathy?
That's good, thank you.
Well, it was just there, but just to add to that, sometimes people are advised to do that when they have areas in their home that aren't properly heated as well.
Yeah.
If those areas are on their side of the meter, then that water will get charged to the meter at the end of the day. So it's important that people do properly heat their basements as well, right? So something to keep in mind as well.
Or insulate.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I see that Beresford, the revenue on the water side, revenue 16%. Our revenue is generated from Beresford or Bell Bay now, yet 35% of the consumption is from Bell Bay. Has that been the norm for many years now, or?
They've been a little bit pretty much steady. If they do more flushing, then it will increase. So when they have a lot of things going on their end, but typically they've been consuming pretty much the same, with the exception of when they rotate. I think they did work at one point to flow the water better. I don't know what that process is called, but they did something. But the only material change that we've been seeing is really through the rates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good to move forward?
Yes. So then invoices are printed and sent, folded, everything. So all of these are done manually right now. Depending on where the study goes, that's where the city will work to program these, because now we have the ability to have an online format, but we have done so because the programming will change depending on where we go with this. So once that's done, then we would start working to have the online version for citizens. Then the invoice is sent. Obviously, if there's questions on the invoice, that's where we do a lot of education. So the reception answers some of them, while more in-depth questions get transferred to the utilities clerk. And if there's a leak is suspected to be the reason for high consumption, customers will sometimes ask from someone from Public Works to go, requiring their time as well. Questions range from being able to understand the bill to why there's such a high consumption, and lots of education is done. So the advantage of a meter system is to spot the leaks. That is, other than invoicing, that is the advantage of it. If the issue on the owner's side, that it's on their onus to repair and keep and pay that amount. But because the billing is done quarterly, let's say you just received your bill, and the day after, that's the day you get your leak you're not aware of, you have to wait a full 3 months to get another bill and have the possibility to have that leak spot. So the frequency of the billing is creating an issue, and it's kind of taking away the advantage of having a metered system. So obviously we have very angry calls from customers, and rightly so, because sometimes they're quite high, and it creates many staff members to be involved, from the utilities clerk, from myself to Mr. Abernathy's crew, sometimes the CAO, and often council members, depending on the issue. So a lot of people get involved when there's a major leak, and it wasn't spotted right away. Collection of accounts. So any amount owed is due within 30 days of the invoicing date, and any unpaid amount after that amount becomes due has a penalty of 1.5% per month until paid. When such charges remain unpaid, then after 6 months, we can send a shut-off notice. The issue is that the 7 first steps are so time-consuming, it leaves very little time for on-time collection. Then we get into the dynamic of property transfers. So 2 things need to happen when a property transfers occurs. First, a change of the information on the account based on the information received from the lawyers, and then we charge the seller of the properties for the fees owed up until the selling date to ensure none of it is charged to the new owner. So the first step, you have notification of the sale. The lawyer notifies the Treasury Department of the property transfer, closing date, send by form. That's fine. This step is completed just to put it in the queue. The second step is the meter reading. On the day before the closing or the day, the lawyer will update the form, adding the meter reading, and then we process the final bill. The third step is to send the final invoice to the lawyer of the seller, and they pay that through the legal documents. And the final step will be to officially change the information in the system. So when all of that goes smoothly, it takes about 0.5 hours to process. When there's an issue with the reading, so sometimes they come in and they don't correspond with something that we have in the books. Sometimes we have to send someone from Public Works to go on site and verify the reading and to check if the meter is functioning correctly. Reasons for the discrepancies typically includes there's too many estimates and they had a leak, it wasn't spotted before. The proper charges are not done historically, adjustments are needed, customer is not taking the reading from the meter reader but from the power reader, there's been tampering with the meter, whole bunch of reasons. When we have issues with the legal requirement, some lawyers do not advise in advance for a property transfer closing date. When there are numerous closing dates on the same date, like peak season, we can have very, very high demand for property transfer information. It's first come, first serve. So they might have to wait longer than expected, missing their closing deadlines. So that's a risk for the lawyers. Many closures occur at the end of the month, at the same time where we do the billing. So the last one on the list can take a while to get to. So this means the lawyer has to wait a while for the final invoice to be processed as well. So it creates a lot of back and forth when we have especially new lawyers from out of town. They don't really understand the metered system if they don't live in a town that has a metered system. So that also creates more time. So that usually takes 1.25 hours. So let's look at the trend since 2020. So as you know, we had an increase in sale of property in the municipality. 2020, we had 112, and in 2023, based on Service and Brotherhood, we had 383 changes of property. So when you take the average time to process between a file that goes well to a file that doesn't go well, and you average them out, and you take the cost per hour, so the cost per hour is the salary for the year with the workable hours. So we took away the breaks, the long weekends, so they're really the time that they have to work. At a rate of 56.03, we have gone from 18 days during the year to process these demands to 61 days a year to process these demands at a cost of $18,000. So right there, we know that it doesn't leave much time to maintain the utility accounts with a meter system that is requiring. Now the meter from the Public Works, additional information to wire your house with a touchpad, 2 to 4 hours depending on the house. It requires 2 employees. Procoder is fast and easy to install. It's less than 10 minutes. There's still a little bit of the 5/8 inches meters in stock, but are getting harder to purchase and getting that was their go-to. To install a 3/4 inch, the water needs to be closed at the road and a plumber needs to be hired for $160. Most of the time, customers' internal valve is not operating and the licensed plumber needs to be hired. This is when then invoiced to the customer, since property owners are responsible for their valves, but staff still has to go through the process of calling the plumber, going on location and doing all the steps that are required. When the utility clerk receives a complaint from a customer regarding its reading and it's outside the regular water meter reader run, someone from Public Works will have to go and do a checkup. This takes on average 30 minutes. Troubleshoot touchpad error can be between 1 hour and 3 hours. There is currently a backlog of 223 meters. When we collected this data, there was 223 meters that needed repair, such as difficulty reading, freezers broken. And in 2022, just the salaries, not the meters, not the plumbers, not anything of that, cost us in Public Works staff salary $9,000 in just resolving issue, and it does not include either the supervisor costs. So that goes quite a bit. I've had these supervisors telling me and calling me that I went there and went there and went there. It's not their time. That is just for Public Works staff. So when we look at what we discussed earlier on, full cost recovery, so to make both full circle, full cost recovery requires the generation of sufficient revenues through appropriate servicing to cover the full cost of water and services. So if we really wanted to charge this generation for their current expenses, we'd charge them for operating, maintenance, and administration, research and development, the financial costs, the capital investments in the facilities, including the depreciation, so when they're at the end of life, we replace them. So although this needs to be fully explored and implemented at the city without resolving the two first issues, it would be very difficult to do so. So synthesis, deficits are difficult to avoid due to unpredictability of revenues. As rates increase, users reduce consumption, creating a gap in budgeting revenues and actual revenues. Revenues are contingent on variable consumption, so 72, but the costs associated are most likely fixed. Since it doesn't cost the city more or less for one household versus another, it creates an unfair charging model. So the meter is supposed to be charging the user their fair share. The more that you consume, the more you pay. But it doesn't cost us more to produce. So the person that lives single household with one person versus the family with 3 kids, 4 kids, 4 kids have higher consumption, they're paying more, but it's not costing us any more to bring the water from this house to this house. So it creates, because of the way that our expenses are, it creates an unfair charging model. Customers receive billed quarterly, delaying spotting leaks, and it reduces the benefits of the metered system. Invoicing process from step 1 through 7 are so complex that we have difficulty getting to collection. So really to fix everything, we need to hire an additional administrative staff at $76,000. Property transfers are difficult. Changing all the water meters would be $2.2 million. 223 meters right now need repairs. Public Works staff could be working on something else than just the meters, I assume, or so I've been told. And not addressing these issues is a deterrent to full cost recovery. So the recommendation, considering that the purpose of the water meter system is to know how much to invoice the owner, it is difficult to justify its costs when 92% of the invoices go to residential properties and the water sewer expenses would be the same regardless of the usage of them. So it is recommended that we use an ulterior motive. So there are 5 types: flat rate, constant rate, declining block rate, increasing or inverted block rate, and the humpback block rate. So really when you look at the flat rate, you would see that you just charge one flat amount per year. So you decide on an amount per year that you would go through, that's the amount that you charge. So what happens is that the more users that you have, the more your cost per unit decreases. So that is one module, but the impact on the customer bill as volume increases, if they consume more, their bill remains the same, and it requires no meter. Constant rate That one is the one that we currently have. So it's exactly linked to your billing. And really, when you look at the first one, the flat rate, it is, when you look at the declining line, it's because your cost is fixed and it's not, you have savings of economy. So the more you have economies of scale, sorry. So the more you produce, more you consume, the less it's costing you per unit. Versus the other one, where really it would be directly associated to the water that's consumed by our property owners, would have a direct impact on the cost per unit, or would have no impact on the cost per unit. That would be a full variable expense structure. And as customers see an increase in their usage, their billing would increase as well. Declining block rate is when you have threshold. It's like a stepping step. The more water that you use, the less you're getting charged, because you're saying you're a massive user or a high user. So when you meet threshold, the cost per unit that you're getting billed decreases. So you have kind of a weird wave on your billing. The inverted is the same thing, but in reverse. The more you consume, the more your rates increase. All of these requires a meter to be installed. Or the humpback block rate, that one is a combination of the two. So until a certain threshold, you have blocks of the more you consume, the more you're charged per unit. And then after you meet that top, then you say, okay, it's not costing us more, then you get a declining rate going forward. So your bill is kind of a wave. Now, obviously, depending on which billing system is used, it does have an impact on the way that the owners use the water, obviously. So in 2012, major upgrades were done to the water production capabilities, and it has the capacity to produce approximately 13.5 million imperial gallons of water. Currently, we 6 million imperial gallons outflow from the plant, which means that we only use 45% of the plant's capacity. So we have space. If, let's say, we change model, we have space to grow. The raw source for the city's potable water system is Middle River. The river tends to run consistently most of the year, but periodically there's a drop in water levels to where 80% to 90% of the flow is being directed into the reservoirs for treatment for short durations. And after water is treated and sent to the network for consumption, the majority is sent to the wastewater treatment plant where it's treated and returned to the environment. So since our climate receives ample precipitations, fresh water from the river makes its way to the bay either via the potable water process or simply by continuing down the river. Therefore, there is no long-term worry of running out of water due to increased consumption. Managing water consumption would only be a concern during a period of extreme drought, as the city reservoirs contain storage for 14 days of use after the river dries up. In the unlikely event of a drought, the city would issue a water use advisory, but we haven't done so in 15 years. There's an argument to be made, and that's where, when we look at the quality of the water, when we look at the concern of people using more, there's an argument to be made that an increased consumption will improve the water quality and reduce the need for flushing. The American Water Work Association recommends that water not spend more than 7 days in water network before use. Increased consumption would reduce the age of the water in the system and help the city meet this guideline for water age. So at this point, we are recommending for residential properties a flat rate, and for all the non-residential accounts properties, we're recommending no change, at least for the moment, because let's say that you onboard 4,217 customers on a flat rate. You do your system based on the number of accounts, and you hope you do your math well, that everything for the number of units. Because let's say that a number of units, when we're saying if you're a single house dwelling, it would be 1 unit. If you're a duplex, 2 units. If you're an apartment building that's evaluated on Service New Brunswick with 8 units, you'd be charged 8 units. So obviously, the information that we have is based on the Service New Brunswick websites that we took on. But if there's discrepancies, the system could shift. So you wouldn't want to shift all of your non-residential users at the same time. You'd want stability with your flat rate, and then if you want to analyze further what you could do with your non-residential, then you look at it afterwards. But you need stability in your majority before you change the minority. What could be done, however, for the non-residential is instead of billing quarterly, because there would only be 339 accounts left, we could charge monthly. If they have leaks, they could spot it better, spot it quicker. It would help with our cash flow, help with their cash flow. And then with the flat rate for non-residential, we could offer an invoice that's on an annual basis. If they pay it all, they get a discount, or they could divide the payments in 12 months and plan their budget accordingly. For apartment buildings, it's easier to budget when you go to the bank, and you're not your cost is not contingent on the usage of the tenant that you have. So you have a lot more stability that way for us and also for property owners. You don't have the water meter reader going into your household. You improve the quality of the water, possibly through the system working a little bit more. We have the capacity. So I think that through all of that, that's why we made that recommendation. If this is approved, then obviously we would have to establish the exact new rates. So next time we come back to council, we would have the rates, incorporate that with the full budget to see where that goes. We have to review the bylaw. We would have to do the system programming, and obviously a good communication plan for the citizens to understand the new way if it's approved.
All right, so we do have some questions. I think that this is a great opportunity, especially for landlords, or, we've been working on development for housing, and, apartment buildings, I think, are the way to go. And having a flat rate for them, they can actually encounter that part of the rent, right? So if there's a certain rate that they would pay per unit per month, they can actually add that. So let's say, for example, if it is $700 or whatever it is, divided by 12, and you go at $60, they can add it to their rent. So we do have a couple of lights. Councillor Burnett?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Could you go over that again about the residential, about the multiplexes and the
yes.
apartment buildings? And you've thrown a lot at us here, and I might have missed a little
Yes.
bit about that.
No.
So if somebody has a duplex, they pay 2 water
Yes.
bills. If somebody has a fourplex, they pay 4.
Yes. So when we say bills, it would be based, because when we look at in your package, you have a lot more lines than the average. So when I go back to, sorry for your eyes, I'm going to spin it a little bit. I'm almost there. Okay. This one. So on your packages, you have, it goes way higher. Well, the higher ones, it's because they're big apartment buildings. So they have a lot of users. So instead of having these one connection and these variations that would be very unpredictable, then would be based exactly that. If you have something that is determined by Service New Brunswick, where you have 10 units, you would be charged that fixed rate times 10.
Okay.
When you go with all the ones that I've seen through our neighbors, other municipalities, when they say per unit, that's really how it is. For example, when you go to Petit Rocher, Marie-Ève Desilets, you see, that is on maternity leave right now, has 3 units. She gets charged for 3 times the fixed amount.
Now, the other question I have is, there are some homeowners that are very conscientious and don't want to use treated water for certain things. Like at my home, we have a lot of flowers, and we have water barrels that I collect the water and then use those for the plants, etc. But I would end up paying the same flat rate as somebody who would water his lawn, or I've heard cases where there was a flat rate where people would water the snow off of their lawn. So how do we handle something like that? Well, you see your neighbor out there watering the snow off his lawn, and you got water barrels for your plants.
Well, 2 things. First of all, it's not costing. It's actually, the more the water moves, the more the quality could improve as well. So we don't really have an environmental concern on that end because of the way that our water is, our source of water is being produced and the way our treatment plant goes through. But it's not costing us more to bring the water to the person who's being very environmentally conscious than the one who has a pool or watering the snow.
Food for thought. Thank you.
Councillor LeBlanc?
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Moi, ce que j'aime de ta proposition, parce que le flat rate, je pense que je l'ai déjà mentionné, que j'y crois beaucoup. Parce que, écoute, on a des coûts d'infrastructure fixes. Mais aussi, un petit peu sur la même inquiétude que mon voisin, le conseiller Brunet, ici. Mais pas du côté des maisons. Moi, j'avais plus peur du côté des industries et puis du côté commercial qu'il y ait de l'abus de fait à ce niveau-là. Mais en gardant les meters pour ces gens-là, on va dire, je pense que ça évite un peu qu'il y ait de l'abus de fait à ce niveau-là. Ça fait que ça, j'apprécie beaucoup. L'autre affaire qui m'a toujours un peu dérangé, parce que j'ai passé à travers, et il y en a plusieurs autres, comme tu l'as mentionné tantôt avec Marie-Ève, d'une façon, si tu veux. Mais la jeune famille avec 3 enfants, c'est vraiment elle qui aura plus besoin d'un break. C'est elle qui finit par payer plus cher pour avoir l'eau à la maison. Ça fait que moi, juste... En tout cas, on va voir c'est quoi ce que tu vas nous emmener à la prochaine réunion. Mais pour l'instant, j'aime bien ta recommandation. Merci.
Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you, Your Worship. We've been talking about this for years. I like the flat, I know, exactly, Sonia, 5 years. I like the flat rate. My only issue with the flat rate is, and it's been the same issue I've had for all these years with regards to the increase in the water bills. I look at our lower income households, I look at senior citizens, and the only concern I have with the flat rate is I just don't think it's fair to be charging a household that's got one individual living in there, low income individual, and then you have a family of 4 that they're both going to pay the same flat rate. Like, you know what I mean? So how do we differentiate? Are we going to be able to differentiate that? Depending on have a flat rate, depending on the amount of people that's actually residing in the home?
No, because the family of 4 could be a single mother with 3 kids.
100%.
Only one salary, same thing. It's not costing us more to bring the water there. Other thing, if it's a low income, the senior citizens, they have access, and that's already in place now.
Right,
And obviously, we would need to, when we review the bylaw, obviously, that wouldn't be recommended to be taken off, but we do have the senior rebates for the one that have access to it. So there are things that we can do with our bylaw to help these situations, depending on how it's written. So right now, we're focusing on the citizens rebate, and if they have the low-income proof from the, what's the document? I forget the document's name. Anyways, when they prove that they are eligible, then they get access
For the
to that
seniors, you
senior.
mean?
Yes.
It's with the GIS rebate. If they're eligible
Yes.
for the GIS rebate, then they would be eligible
Thank you.
for a discount here.
Yes, so that is part of our bylaw. So if we do something, it would be through the bylaw for those rebates, for those that we would want to touch base on.
I know what you're saying, but when I look at seniors and even just individuals living on their own, but I'm just going to use the example of a senior citizen. The income thresholds for when somebody would qualify for a supplement, they're not making $25,000 a year before they're qualifying for a supplement. So that's where my concern lies, because just because they're getting a supplement does not mean that they have a big income coming in, because they don't.
And that's why
It's very little.
And that's why when we review the bylaw, my suggestion, if it's the bylaw is too stringent, where it's not meeting what we judge would be the required needs, that would be the time where we adjust it when we review the bylaw.
Because I'm all for this process going forward. I like the flat rate, but I think for me it's gonna be what's the bottom line?
Yeah.
What's the actual resident gonna end up being charged? Like, what's the bottom line with it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And I know we're not doing that tonight, but
Yes, but I agree.
those are my
And
concerns.
for these types of concern, It's my recommendation would be that when we review the bylaw, we make sure that we include those preoccupations as a means to counterbalance them, without compromising the revenue that comes in and without creating instability in the system either. But I'm sure there's a way where we can meet that concern by maybe expanding the senior rebate to where we judge is a true need versus something that is from that program.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. For me, it's gonna, what the bottom number is gonna be is gonna determine where my brain goes with it, do you know what I mean? Because I'm just thinking about fairness for everybody out there and not having somebody that lives alone versus somebody that's living in a house with 5, 6, 7 people paying the same amount of money for water. Like that's where my concern lies.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Councillor Knowles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, thanks for putting all this information together regarding this study, because I know it took a lot more than 15 minutes to put this together, but very important. It's a big decision to make. We're going to look at all avenues, but it's nice to have relevant information to make that decision. One question about if we did do away with the metering system for water, what do we do with the existing meters in each household? Do we take them out or just leave them? I've never been.
The ones that did change, so Woodstock actually have a presentation on their website because they did go through that same change last year. They even use the same financial software that we do, so the examples for billing for flat versus the ones that are get metered are actually from the same financial software. And at the time where the way that they did it, they said, if you have a meter, just leave it in. We're not going to go pick it up again, and if it breaks, well, just don't replace it. The ones where we could probably reinvest are the outside the e-meter, the e-coders, or the ones that are taken from the outside digitally. These ones could be fully put to the non-residential properties so that you could do them all by simply driving and collecting the data every month, making it even more efficient.
Okay, thanks.
Right. Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Sonia. I just wanted to point out a couple of things, I guess, that are obvious. We keep saying that from an environmental standpoint, it's a good thing to do because the water's fresher and all that, and I get that, but I just want to point out that on the other side, we have to look at the environment too, right? I can't see where it's environmentally better to treat more water, right? Because we're using chemicals to treat the water and all that, so I guess that's one thing to keep in mind. Again, not saying I'm against this, just throwing that out there. And another thing too is that people that took the initiative, like changing toilets, shower heads, taps, and all that stuff, are now going to be rewarded potentially with higher rates, right? So they invested money to conserve water, and now they're going to end up paying higher rates.
So I will let Mr. Abernathy answer the first one, but for the second part, unfortunately, every year, because of efficiencies and everything, we've had a decrease in consumption, so we're never reaching so we're having to increase the rate per consumption, so they're getting charged with it regardless, because at one point they made the efficiencies, but we have to increase the rate. So because we have to balance the budget. So this way at least we have stability in the amount and we can plan for it, but that would be my go-to. For the environmental
thanks for the question. So you do bring up a good point about the environmental aspect of it, using chemicals and whatnot. But through the analysis of the GLs, is that 3% variable cost is what we're talking about when we're talking about chemicals and additives and whatnot. So it's quite a small portion of the overall operation. And when you look at the environmental side of it, yes, you're correct. There is a slight aspect there of using a little bit more chemical to treat a little bit more water. But the issue that's happening right now is instead of us running water through people's meters and through their homes and into the wastewater treatment plant and then sending it back out, we're now discharging it into ditches and through our flushing program. So we're still using that amount of chemical. Now, in that 3%, that's accounting for a conservative amount of increase in usage throughout the system. So we're assuming that we're going to be using more water than we're using right now, but there is actually a possibility that we use less because we are flushing a significant amount right now. There's multiple locations in the city right now that are flushing all summer long. So, that kind of remains to be seen as far as how much chemical is going to be used, the amount of chemical that actually makes its way out into the environment is very minimal, though there's treatment processes in place to eliminate that before it's discharged into the environment, so.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Good. So, Madame Gauvin, just for the flat rate, you will come and present, it's on the 25th that you will come back for
Yes.
the flat rate with an idea after you're done finishing
That
the
is
study?
contingent on everybody being okay. We continue this avenue, because if you're not okay, then we will go to the typical way that the current model that we have and do rate scenarios based on that. Now, if everybody is okay with us going forward, then we will continue going forward down this route. If
I
Members are okay.
personally, I know I don't have a vote, but I really like the flat rate, and what I liked about it is that we have an opportunity to review the bylaws and make some changes for the elderlies. We have an opportunity as council to sit down without breaking the bank, but to see what can be done and what do we have now that can be utilized and what other changes could we make. So my direction to council will be, would you like Madame Gauvin to keep moving forward and to bring us that opportunity of a flat rate on October 25th? I'm just looking for kind of a nod.
Okay.
Yes?
Will
Okay,
do.
that's your direction.
Will do then. Thank you.
All right, so we're doing good timing. We are moving on to the Chaleur Regional Service Commission budget. Just quickly, and I'm saying it, we're all joking, but it's true. If some of us have purchased Chase the Ace tickets for the curling club, if one of our phones rings at 9 o'clock, and if I'm one of them, I am out that door, and or I might do it live on Facebook. So we will give everybody maybe 2 minutes just to go to the washroom, especially for you,
Yes.
Madame Gauvin, because you have not stopped talking
I will
for
take a drink of water.
2.5 hours now.
Hence the coffee.
Yes. So,
Thank you.
Luke, can we take a quick 2 minutes?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, welcome back. Thank you, everyone. Madame Gauvin, we are going to go to the Chaleur Regional Service Commission budget.
Thank you. So last item on the docket is the Regional Service Commission. So every year we present to council the draft that is being circulated for adoption on their end because it connects to our budget as well in the end. So that's what we're doing tonight. So first of all, their mandate, so I won't be going through all of that, just to say that they have different sections: tourism, economic development, public transportation, public safety, community development, planning, and shared recreational infrastructure committee, which is new. So their mandate can be found directly on their websites. If you want to know what the purpose of the commission is. Their board of directors is made up of one mayor and the participating municipalities and 4 representatives elected among the chairperson of the local service district. So for Village de Belledune, you have Mayor Paul Arsenault with Councillor Cynthia Robinson. Belle-Bay, you have Danielle Guittard, who is the chairperson, with Councillor Charles Doucette. City of Bathurst, we have Mayor Kim Chamberlain with Councillor Penny Anderson. And for the rural districts, you have Natalie Paulin and Laura McNulty. So these make the board of directors. One of the goals of the municipal reform was to distribute the services and the associated costs fairly. And this, considering that the city of Bathurst typically pays more for services, not only because of the tax base and population, but for having more services and infrastructure, it would mean that the neighboring municipalities would be required to contribute more. When you look at the voting structure, there are 8 people voting. In any way votes come in, because there's different voting weighted depending on the type of vote, but any way that you look at the results, in order for Bathurst to have their opinion voted on in a positive way for their end would be through the goodwill of their neighboring municipalities because they have more votes. So as a regional hub, the city historically assumed the financial burden of operating a significant amount of regional infrastructure. So giving the voting formula and for cost sharing to become fully equitable, the remaining members of the Regional Service Commission would need to increase their contribution. So it's difficult to have something that is shared as a municipal infrastructure when you're asking your neighbors to pay more and they have more votes than you do. So those are the cost sharing discussions that are occurring. So the budget steps, obviously they have a lot of budget steps, same as us. The budget that was first circulated was circulated starting on September 20th. Since then, there have been discussions back and forth, especially for the cost-sharing committee, where you will see the results. And there also have been discussion for the transportation budget, which you will see. But there has been back and forth, so the numbers that I have here tonight are the most recent ones that I've had from this morning. So first of all, we need to do a bit of the recap from last year. The modernization of the local government system, cost changing, and the distribution of the equalization grant. The formula that was used before is 2-part. You have the equalization part of it itself, and then you have the core funding. The core funding will be decreasing by 20% each year for the next 5 years, and that money flows to the regional service commissions now. In 2023, the money received that was used to decrease the charges to municipalities through the budget. So when they got the money from that core funding for that part, Regional Service Commission in this region used it to decrease everybody's fees. For 2024, it has to be allocated through projects or mandates. So according to the Regional Service Commission's budget, the total amount for distribution in 2023 was $330,000. From that total amount and applying the formula for allocation from the province, the city of Bathurst benefited a credit of $152,000. So obviously that $330,000 was divided between Bathurst, Belle-Bay, Belledune, and Rural District. according to the typical distribution formula. And for us, it helped us for 152. So for 2024, the Government of New Brunswick officialized a new funding proposal for the Regional Service Commissions and created the Regional Service Support Fund through the Regulation 2023-35. And the new system of fiscal transfers consists of balances of the deduction from the transitional grant. So that core funding that we have a decrease from 20%, this grant will increase 20%. So it's kind of going in the in the receiving end in the same way. It will mirror what we see. So for the amount that is eligible for 2024 is 508,651. That's what the total budget is in the Regional Service Commissions.
I enjoy how they say, the province says we're going to give them a regional service support fund, right? So we're at 508,651, but it's not the province giving it. It's the municipalities that are taking it from the municipalities and are giving it at the Regional Service Commission when they're going to have almost $1 billion surplus. Move on.
On that note, so I think it's important that we do read the regulation.
Yeah.
So when the minister selects activities that are eligible for a grant, the minister shall be satisfied that each activity supports the implementation of the priority services and actions established in the regional strategy. And so regional strategy are the key words here of the Commission under Section 3.2 of the Regional Service Delivery Act. That regulation is part of the Community Funding Act. The assets of the fund shall be used to support the regional service commissions in implementing the activities identified in their regional strategy. So again, we have the word regional service strategy that is through the Regional Service Delivery Acts. When we look at the definition in the Community Funding Act of regional service delivery, they include regional economic development, regional community development, regional tourism promotion, regional transportation, regional infrastructure, and any other matter prescribed by regulation. So, based on the formula that is set in the first draft that was circulated, the portion for Bathurst from 2024 from the 508 would be 235. So if it was dispersed through all these regional services that are mandated in the Act, we would benefit from it in the amount of 235,000. In the proposed budget, the amounts of the grant listed are distributed to planning services which are not listed in the legislated regional strategies. No regional strategy has been presented to the board. So there is a strategic plan that's being worked on, but the strategic plan is different from the regional strategy, as well as the associated activities that would associate the cost besides it. Planning is an optional service to which Bathurst is not part of, since it has its own planning department. And by distributing the grant to initiatives not benefiting everyone, the grant is not benefiting everyone to the same proportion they are contributing to. So the actual amount going toward this distribution for Bathurst is 166. So that's the difference of close to 69,000 to the contributed amount. So when you look at the comparison of where the equalization grant was distributed last year compared to its equivalent this year, corporate services, that's zero, that's not eligible in either format. Planning services, an amount of 149,000, which represents 29% of the total grant associated to this service only. Nothing was from the equalization grant in 2023. The solid waste has a 25,000 to accomplish a study. Zero was for last year. Tourism would see zero for 2024, benefiting from the grant, but had 125 last year. Economic development, they associated about the same amount of the grant. Community funding, 25,000 for 2024 versus 13,000 2023. Regional transportation would see 158,000 of the grant versus 15,000. Obviously, that wasn't started last year. Public safety, a decrease from 16,000 to 9,000. And shared recreational installations last year had benefited 13,000, but we received zero. So So that's the distribution of the grant that's being proposed in this budget. When we look at the proposed fees itself, we can say planning services, although in the packages that are being circulated, in the comparison, it seems to show that there's a decrease in the fees for Bathurst. It's not a decrease because we're not participating in the cost distribution for planning services. In 2023, there was an agreement for specific planning services in the amount of $79,000, but that was really a purchase of a service, and it's in other revenues, not in the distribution of the fees. So really, the planning services are zero. Solid waste, there's an increase of $2 per ton. So when you compare the same amount of tonnage, apples to apples, there's a slight increase there. Recycling, no change. Tourism, there's an increase of $17,000. Economic development, about the same. Community development, an increase of $4,000. Regional transportation, that one we have a specific slide on, but there's an increase of $40,000. Public safety, not material changes there. Shared recreational expenses, that's only the administrative cost. That is not the actual shared services. That's an increase of $4,000. So if we look more specifically to the regional transportation that's being proposed,
Madam Gauvin, before you move forward, so I just want to say so in tourism, it was 47,082, so it went up to 65,063 for 2024, right?
Yes.
Is that our cost?
that is our cost. So what you see here is not the cost being shared through everybody. That is the City of Bathurst invoice at the end of the day with no change.
And in what they've put through the grants, they've put $0 under tourism.
Right.
Even though we have an additional cost of 65,000.
Right.
Am I correct? Okay. All right. We'll move on.
So for transportation, the project that's being proposed here, hours of service 6 to 6, Monday to Friday, 10 to 8 on Saturdays, fixed route completed 4 times a day, includes 4 buses of 20 passengers and 1 taxi bus. It includes the construction of a garage. The yearly development in 2024, they would do the capital purchases only, but starting October, they would add the salaries for managers that would set up for the coming year at a cost of $28,000 about. And then they have salaries to realize the Economic and Social Inclusion Fund projects by the province. So we have about 133 salaries, which is being funded to a capacity of 50,000, plus we have supplies and travel miscellaneous. 2025, that's where the routes would start. They would go initially from Bathurst to Point Velt and vice versa, but 2026 to 2028, they would be from Bathurst to Belgium. We received 5-year scenario. So the member shared cost for year 1, because it's only the capital purchases, would be in the amount according to their budget of $92,000. Because the rural district would not have access to the buses, they would not be contributing. Belgium, because they would not have access to the actual usage of the buses until year 4 or year 3. They would only start paying through the capital because they would be using it going forward, but not the operations. So that's the calculation that you have there for 2024, and the rest is divided between Bathurst and Bilby. 2025 has to be determined because I wasn't sure which part was the capital and which one was operational. Then year 3, they fully contribute. But as you can see, Bathurst contribution based on this year's assessment and population distribution, like the other scenarios that changes every year, would be $49,000 for 2024. 2025, if we receive the bus and we actually start operating in January, it would be 602. And then 2026 would be 525. 2027, 523. 2028, 542. That is the 5-year scenario we have here. For the shared recreational installations, 4 installations were identified in 2023's budget for shared costs as being considered regional to the full Chaleur region. We have the Casey Irving Center, we have the Aquatic Center, the synthetic soccer turf, and the sportsplex, I'm sorry, it's getting late. So the current formula is the initial formula, and we're going to scenario, and then we will look at what's being proposed. So the initial formula is 33% considered local for the section that could be equivalent of the Richelieu rink, for example. Second, 33% is considered for local use of the regional surface, and then the last 33% is considered the regional surface that should be divided. So you have a local, a sub-regional, and then a regional. With the municipal reform, obviously the sub-regional is now included in the local, but that's really the definition of these sections. Then that last 33% is allocated by taking into consideration the distance. So the closer you are to the installation, the more you have to pay, and the farther you are, the less you have to pay for that same 33. So with the same formula than last year, based on the total costs considered, which were the actual costs for 2022, for the Casey Irving, the considered amount is 1.7 million. That 33% that would be shared would be 570. Bathurst would be responsible for 354 of that 570. Belgian 20,000, Belbé 156, and the Rural District 39. Aquatic Center, based on 470, would be considered 33%, 155, and then same thing, it's split. Soccer turf, there's nothing for this year because they had a profit in 2022, so nothing's being considered. And then for the sportplex, the cost to the city of Bathurst for their operation would be $5,300. When you put all that together, then in revenues, the city of Bathurst would be getting $275 from its neighboring municipalities, but the total amount that Bathurst ends up paying is 87%. So when we say percentage paid out of the total cost considered, that means that Bathurst would be responsible for 87%. The expense, it would cost us $5,300, which means we would pay 11% of their operations. What's being proposed, so there's a Regional Recreation Infrastructure Committee that had a first meeting last week. They made precisions to the mandate. The pool was identified as a no contest regional. So since fully regional, we were ready for the end goal formula, and the end goal formula is the same as all the other costs. So if you take the corporate fees that are being divided, that formula that takes into consideration 50% of the population, 50% of the assessment base, that would be distributed accordingly through the region, and 100% of the eligible costs would be considered. There's a removal of the distance component, but in order for understanding through the municipal reform, there's an understanding that, like the Ward 2 have a transition period, it would also be allowed a transition period. So the committee, this formula ultimately is what's being suggested, as well as a transition period, so that they increase their capacity to pay. So when we take that scenario for the pool into consideration, the line for the aquatic center changes. So $470,000 in considered cost. The portion increases from 33% to 41% because it would be increasing about 8% per year. It's 8-point-something% for the next 8 years until it reaches the 100%. And then Bathurst would pay $90,000 of that 194, but really it's 470 minus what we're getting. But Belgian would be 15,000, Belbé would pay 71,000, and Rural District would pay close to 18,000. So now we're seeing a shift in the aquatic center, where we would receive 104 and would pay 78% of the cost instead of 87%. And going forward, it would increase every year until it gets balanced out to the proposed formula. So that's what's being suggested by the Recreational Committee.
So I do have a question from Councillor LeBlanc.
Merci, Madame la mairesse. Vraiment, j'ai remarqué la même affaire que vous tout à l'heure, en passant. Donc, ça, j'espère que vous avez pris note. Ma question, tantôt quand tu parlais des transports en commun, je présume qu'il n'y a aucun revenu d'incorporer là-dedans. C'est uniquement des coûts, ça, des frais?
Ça, c'est net des revenus.
Oui.
C'est net des revenus.
Ça, c'est incluant les revenus, incluant le
Donc,
marketing.
annuellement, ça nous coûterait 500, passer 500 000.
Pour avoir transport en commun avec un coût partagé avec jusqu'à Pointe-Verte, oui. C'est beaucoup plus
C'est beaucoup
Oui.
plus qu'on avait.
Oui.
Ouais.
Au début, on parlait à peu près de 250 000, 300 000. On a regardé les opérations à Miramichi, mais c'est que Miramichi l'a fait tout seul. C'est juste Miramichi. C'est un peu différent de qu'est-ce que nous, on essaye de faire. On va y aller la semaine prochaine. On va s'asseoir de nouveau, moi-même, puis député maire Anderson. Puis, écoute, je pense que BLB, ils ont eu leur rencontre hier soir. Eux autres, ils ont des chiffres aussi. Ça se peut que ça tombe à l'eau. Ça se peut que
Ben, moi, je
ça va
regarde
de
ça, ça
l'avant.
nous coûte 1 million entre la gang. Là.
Hein?
Ça nous coûte 1 million par année entre la gang.
Oui, oui. Fait ce coût-là, Mme Gauvin, je ne me trompe pas, ça va être ramené de nouveau le 25 parce que nous, il faut qu'on l'amène à la CSA la semaine prochaine. Fait le Conseil a eu l'opportunité, BLB, de voir la formule, de voir c'est quoi les coûts versus qu'est-ce qui va être nos coûts à nous aussi, là. Ça fait nous, c'est pour ça qu'on discute ce soir, de discuter du transport en commun, puis de nous guider, moi et député maire Anderson, sur qu'est-ce que vous voulez de nous pour qu'on amène au comité la semaine prochaine.
C'est vraiment notre vrai coût à la ville de Bathurst serait, mettons, on va prendre 2026. 525 000 par année. Ouais.
Oui, à moins qu'ils choisiraient d'enlever, tu sais, les fonds qu'on a, là, qu'ils ont reçus, le 508 000, là, mettons, pour 2024, parce que là, on ne le regarde pas, là, mais pour 2024, je pense qu'ils plaçaient 158 250. Fait en 2025, s'ils choisiraient d'enlever 200 000 de ce budget-là, puis qu'ils le placeraient là, bien ça baisserait aussi, là. Là, tout de suite, ça n'enlève pas s'ils mettraient leur portion du Regional Service Support Fund, le RSS Fund, s'ils prendraient des fonds de ça, puis qu'ils le placeraient sur le transport en commun en 2025, ça pourrait baisser les coûts. Mais même s'ils placeraient 200 000, admettons, on en regarde quand même à 500 000 pour la ville de Bathurst comme coût d'opération.
C'est beaucoup.
Il va y avoir des grosses décisions, oui.
Ouais. Okay. C'est ça qui était ma question.
Parfait. Deputy Mayor Anderson?
Thank you. I think we need to kind of retract a little bit and look at the RRA, the RRA funding that is going to the Regional Service Commission. The $508,000 that the money is coming from the municipalities, right? That's where it technically based on the tax base. Of that 508, Sonia, what is the percentage of that 49% of that 508 actually comes from the city of Bathurst?
I don't remember. It's close to that, yes.
It was
very
around
close to that.
49%. And as Sonia mentioned a while ago, 29% of that budget is going directly into their planning department. So like, and as the mayor pointed out, nothing into tourism. Like this budget that's presented to us is so anti-Bathurst, it's terrible. And, you know, we discussed this at the last meeting. It was a public meeting, so I don't mind saying it. We discussed it, Mayor Chamberlain and I, our concerns based on how the budget is presented and how it's distributed. We basically got nowhere with them. Nobody really cared less what we were saying. So I have an issue just on this budget alone, how it's presented, where we're losing out on so much funding because of how they've decided to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's getting too late. I can't even think anymore. Allot the monies. Do you know what I mean? Like we're getting the short end of the stick here big time. When it comes to the transportation system, in my eyes, there's no way the city of Bathurst can afford $600,000 for a transportation system that has the majority of its stops in the Bell Bay area. Like Like, if you look at the mapping that was presented to us with this bus route going from Greenpoint through to East Bathurst, there's way more dots in Bell Bay than there is in the city of Bathurst. Yet, because of the cost structure, we're still paying more than Bell Bay. Personally, I'm just so tired of this, of us getting the short end of the stick all the time, and how they have things structured. I don't even want to go through with it. I don't want to go through with this transit model that's presented. I don't want, I'll certainly, if changes aren't made to this budget, I will certainly be voting no at the Regional Service Commission. That's my opinion. As the mayor said, we had a discussion and I told her, it's not the Kim and Penny show. All of this has to be presented to council, and council give their opinions on it. But when you look at it line for line, how everything is so unfair for the city of Bathurst. And we were told in a public meeting, well, you guys are pulling out of the planning department. No, we're not pulling out of the planning department. We were never in the planning department. We contracted out services for the year 2023. We're not pulling out of anything, but we were never in it. And we were told, well, what comes around goes around.
At the meeting, yeah.
In a
What comes
public
around
meeting.
goes around.
Comes around, goes around. Just remember, what comes around goes around. So, I am, as you can tell, just kind of done with it. And I personally, the meeting is next Wednesday night at 6:30. I urge all of our council members to attend that meeting so you guys could hear firsthand exactly what is said. You're not getting hearsay back from her and I that we might have missed something. I think it's so beneficial for everybody sitting in this room to take the 2 hours and go sit there and listen to them go through the budget. Councilor LeBlanc and I went last year, and we learned a lot of things there that we probably wouldn't have heard in council chambers. So I just think it's very beneficial for everybody, especially this year where it's a bit of a gong show, that everybody has themselves educated on exactly where the monies are going and what end of the stick we're ending up with. That's just my rant.
So we're lit up just about everywhere. The cost of infrastructure, and especially, as I said at the beginning, the RSS fund that the provincial government is saying they're putting in place is not coming from them. It's actually coming from the municipalities. So they're not paying for it. Looks good, but they're not the ones paying for it. We are. All right, so I'll go to Councillor Willett, and then I'll make a branch and make my way up that way. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one question for KCI. So we're staying at 30% for the KCI?
So the only regional facility that there was absolutely no debate with was the pool. What happens with the other three infrastructure, when we're talking about eligible costs, there needs to be a work done by the committee to look an understanding of what it is. So last year, and same as this year, it's kind of the total numbers that are being considered, but what are the eligible costs? The committee has to go through that work. So until that work comes through, the formula here would be maintained, but 2024 it would be of absolute importance to start the year with reviewing those so that it's ready to be changed for the coming budget. But at least it's going in a way where we have a proposed formula going forward is determining what the eligible costs are.
Well, from the information that we have here tonight, I would say that we should definitely vote no on the budget for the CSR. I mean, it doesn't make sense to vote for this the way it is there. So,
But remember, as Madame Gauvin said a while ago, we're only 2 votes.
that's fine, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. But yes, I'm listening.
it seems like if we're being railroaded, we may as well voice our opinion.
The good thing is that at our last meeting at the Regional Service Commission, this committee was created. And there's no councillors, there's no mayor sitting around it. It's our CAO and our accountant that sits around the table with the other municipalities. So they're having true conversations, so we can come back and instead of doing the 33%, and I've said it before and I've said it again, and I've said it twice at the Regional Service Commission, for 2024, could we at least have a better cost sharing for the pool? At least a pool. Now the committee's in place, they can sit down, they can review, and let's try to work together. I understand that 31% of the municipalities are not going to be able to balance their budget, and Bedbay's probably one of that 31%. But it shows for us doing this and increasing, it shows that even through all of this, we are still trying to work in collaboration with our partners, our municipal partners, to come to a fair shared cost.
This is not one.
No. Councillor Branch?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll have to refer to my notes. I have a lot of things and definitely not going to get through them all, but I'm just curious, which areas are mandatory for us to participate in with the Service Commission? Like which ones?
All of it, except the transportation and the planning. So this is mandated by the province.
Yeah.
We can't decide yes or no. We can vote against it, but we can't say we're not doing tourism. And if I may just add, and I don't want to take away from your questions, but for transportation, there'll be no other vote but Belle Bay and Bathurst. We decide that. So other municipalities, like the rural district, can't vote on something that they're not paying a cent on. We decide if we're spending that money. They can't override that decision for us.
Okay, thank you very much. So to get on with my list, I guess, I want to point out like the RSS fund, like you were saying, like that is really just a shell game, right? Bathurst is losing $69,000 by them taking the funding from tourism that was there last year and moving it to planning. So like you say, that's just abusing Bathurst to help the other municipalities. Would Bathurst be obligated to participate in the public transportation if this budget was approved?
No, that's what I said. Public
Okay.
transportation is the only one that this is a decision between Belle Bay and Bathurst. We've added it. It would be managed by the Regional Service Commission, but the other members around the table cannot vote on something that they're not paying for.
I know they can't vote on it, but
Yeah.
if it's approved, we don't have to go ahead with it.
No,
If it-
the
oh,
public transportation is not part of the mandate on the list, right, Madame Gauvin? No, it's not mandatory. Yeah, we have regional transportation, but that regional transportation is mostly like through CTC Chaleur. They're trying to offer, like they've been offering, but what we're trying to do, that's not part of that.
Okay. I just want to point out too, like when Councillor LeBlanc said earlier, like you point out $525,000 in 2026. When we were at that budgeting meeting, those numbers did not include like a building. There was no building there for maintenance and cleaning, so that would drive that cost up. And when you look at their 5-year projections, like their operating costs don't change, but we all know that we have 2 carbon taxes that are going to make our gas prices increase quite a bit and our fuel prices increase quite a bit over the next 5 years. So that wasn't taken into consideration. And there were a lot of things, like I say, the budget that we seen, the projections were not that tight, and I don't think they were that accurate. So I would not even feel comfortable with that number. I think it would be much higher.
If I can just add, in this version that we received for the 5 years, it does now include the garage. But yes, for the other, there was no changes, but for the garage, it was added in the capital costs.
Okay?
Yes.
Thank you. And one thing you mentioned a while ago, Madam Mayor, about, a lot of the municipalities aren't going to be able to balance their budgets, but when you look at us, we have the second highest tax rate in the province, and a lot of them have lower tax rates, right? So we shouldn't have to do the heavy lifting and punish our taxpayers because we have a higher tax rate. Let them, if they don't have the funds available, let them increase their tax rate so they can pay their share, and we don't have to subsidize them. And I guess the last thing I'll touch on is the recreational facilities. Like that funding, it sounds good, the 50-50 in 8 years, but we have to point out that 2/3, 1/3 distribution is still there. And when you look at other areas in the province, they're not doing that. They're doing a true 50-50. So 50% on your tax base 50% on your population. So that is a much more fair representation. So
This is what this formula
Yeah,
is.
that's the one she just
Yeah.
showed.
The
But-
only difference
There
is
would be
we're
an
adding a
increment.
transition.
But
Yeah.
so at the end of 8 years, we don't have that 2/3,
No.
No,
1/3
that's
thing?
completely taken off. The only,
And no kilometers.
so it's the full, true formula, like you described, the 50 population and the 50 assessment that's being considered. The only difference is in order for consideration of their capacity to pay, and because through their municipal reform, they will increase their tax rate for their transition mandate that they have identified on their end, and that's their prerogative. But we're also building a transition period into this. But ultimately, it's the 33%, 2/3, everything that's completely taken out. It's fully 50-50. It's just that they're starting from the 33% from last year, and they're increasing it 8% every year until it reaches the full amount.
Okay.
It will reach 100%,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Before I move on to Councillor Burnett, I'm going to go to our city solicitor. So am I right in what I'm saying? I just want to make sure legally that because of the public transportation and the cost is really only shared between Bathurst and Belle Bay, when we sit around that table, technically there should not be a vote there from the other members because they're not cost sharing that portion.
Yeah, so for any service that is optional, the members who vote are the members who participate. So we can't be, as I understand it, forced into participating into this. And municipalities that wouldn't participate don't vote on the actual project or motions related to the project.
Okay, perfect. Councillor Burnett, did you have another question before I go to Councillor Burnett?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Just one thing I wanted to point out, I guess. I think that if we want to look at the transportation system, we should just look at our own transportation system. I don't see why we should pay the majority of the operating cost for a system where the majority of those costs are incurred in a neighboring community. Again, we're subsidizing them, right? Like Deputy Mayor Anderson said, when you look at the map, that's where the majority of the mileage is. That's where the majority of the stops are. When you look at where the money's coming from, it's coming from Bathurst. So I think that we should do our own study and we should look at having our own system. And in that way, we don't have to deal with another community. We have total control over it. We don't have to worry about votes outside of this council.
It's something we can definitely talk about, and I totally agree. I was at a 5 to 7 last week, and I mean, I had someone from CCNB, I had someone from Vitalite, I had people coming up to me asking, and I was saying, like, this is a big cost factor based on what we're seeing. I think that if we did it internally ourselves within the city limits, because one thing that's really important is that through CMHC and all the housing and units and what we're trying to do, public transportation is very important. But nothing stops us from doing it within our own city limits of Bathurst, and we can push forward. The study's already there. We already know. We already know all the work is done. We just have to apply for funding for the buses, and we can manage it ourselves. If council is looking at doing it that way, then Madame Gauvin can come back for 2024, and we might be able to have it operational and move forward, and how much would it really cost us? And next week, we can seriously go to the Regional Service Commission and say, I'm sorry, my council has decided, and we're doing our own public transportation for the city of Bathurst.
Again, I'm not saying I would commit to it. I would want to see the study. I'm
Yeah.
not for or against, right? I'm open to the idea, but I'm open to the idea of Bathurst doing it. I'm not open to the idea of us partnering with people that, like Madame Gauvin said, like we're at the mercy of their goodwill, right? I'd rather we be in charge of our own destiny.
Perfect. Okay. Councillor Burnett. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Madam
waiting.
Mayor. Thanks for your presentation. Did we see a complete package about the busing and the stops and the type of bus and the,
Yeah, that was all given. We can resend it to you. That was all sent by email.
It was
We-
sent-
Yeah,
sent
it was
each
sent by email.
I don't remember getting that. Yeah.
No? Oh, they didn't get it.
No. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Anderson, I'll give you the mic.
What was presented to us roughly 2 months ago,
I was still a draft.
it was their draft, and that's when they were changing the numbers, and we had been after them saying we need this budget released so our council could see it, but no, we haven't. And I think, Sonia, you did receive something, I want to say last week or 2 weeks ago,
This morning, yes, 2 weeks ago, but
but it wasn't a completed budget. There was still issues with it.
yes, it was
But the
reviewed
study
last week
itself,
and
though,
this morning.
didn't we provide you copies of the study with all the bus stops? Did you get this? No? Because we
No.
could definitely provide you the
I
study.
don't believe they did.
No? Okay. Ms.
No, I don't
Margaret,
remember
can you
getting any
take a
of
note
that.
and-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
like the
definitely.
size of the buses, where they're gonna stop, the shelters, et cetera.
Well, the bus stop and where they were going to stop was going to be another scenario that we would have had to put a committee together, and we would decide at the city of Bathurst what's our important bus stops.
Okay.
They went based on an overall study where they thought, because of all the interviews and the focus groups, that the company that was hired that did it, so we can provide you all that, yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't see voting on
Yeah,
that budget without that.
absolutely.
Yeah. My question would be, what's $600,000 on our tax rate? How many cents?
About 3 cents.
About 3 cents.
3 to 4 cents depending, but yes. it's
So
about-
bringing in this transportation system would take us from the second highest tax rate to the highest tax rate in the province then?
It would depend on every yearly budget. Either it's increased the tax rate, or we have savings internally that we do, or the assessment base, because, I don't know, development or anything that develops increases the assessment, but it would need to be balanced one way or
Yeah.
another.
And there are parts of our operation that we can't fund right now. We just don't have the monies and that tax. And the council last week decided, oh, enough spending on certain items that we can't afford. And yet we're going to take on another service which would raise the taxes at least 4 cents and put us, like I said, to the top of the list, which to me, I cannot support. I could not support that at all. Thank you.
The concept of the public transportation, oh, go right ahead, Councillor Burnett. Yeah.
One more comment I have is the province of New Brunswick has too much government. And we now have amalgamated so many communities together under the new Municipalities Act that I don't see why we need the regional service commissions at all. I think that they should be disbanded now that we have all municipalities set up, and we've gone from hundreds to down to 60 or 70, and yet we still have these 12 regional commissions that are costing the taxpayer a tremendous amount of money. And I think that the province should smarten up and get rid of these.
I think that not only are they not going to get rid of it, I think this is going to become our fourth level of government.
Oh, they are now.
Yeah, but
4
it's-
levels of
it's-
government for 800,000 people.
Yeah.
That's less than the city of Ottawa,
Yeah,
you know?
we're 850,000 right now. Our population is continuously
Still less than
increases.
Ottawa.
But it is less than Ottawa.
With
I
enough
totally
government
agree.
to run the world.
Yeah, and at the rate that we're going, I think it will cost municipalities even more at the Regional Service Commission.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. Not fair.
Councillor Knowles.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to speak long. It's getting late. That 500 to 600,000 per year, our share for the public transportation. It's a good initiative. I don't think anybody's against that, improving it, but that's not feasible for our taxpayers in the city of Bathurst. We can't sustain that, and that might be the only lowball number. It could be 800,000 or $1 million. And what did they base their revenues on? Did they take that out of the air, or
That was,
What's-
no, that they went based on.
how do we know that? What would it ever be? Just a guess, at best, right? No. So that's a no for me.
I think public transportation is very important for the region, for the low income, for the international students, for, I know I have CNIB constantly contacted me. We have Vitalité that's hiring. We have people coming here from other countries that their driver's license is not recognized, so they can't drive their vehicle. They have to redo their written test. Do we have to redo their driving test? Then they can't go a year without driving. There's so many complications, and I believe that there's a need, but I also believe that there's an opportunity without increasing our property taxes, and we can do it at a better rate. Miramichi does it for the city of Miramichi, and that's where I had based myself when we first came with this, but not at a $600,000 per year
No,
cost.
we can't. It's just-
No. So did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, that's
Councillor?
it. Just
Okay.
wanted to make that comment.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Madame Gauvin, am I missing anything moving forward for the Regional Service Commission? What Where are we going? Do you have anything you would like to add?
I said my piece.
You said your piece.
I think it is. I think it's complete.
Okay, so before we end, I just want to go back to council. Based on the information that we've had here, because again, you know, I think this is our first time that we're doing a budget season public. We're going to do it again on the 25th, public. Public, it's important that the public hears these information, so when they come back to us, and I can guarantee you, the minute someone comes up to me, I'm going to say, go on Facebook and watch October 11th's meeting. Your answers are there for the first portion. But for us, we will talk about the 149,084 that is given through planning that should be shared, in that the overall cost within the 508,000, 235,000 of that is from the city of Bathurst, right? So we want that shared cost being divided amongst the A, B, C, D, E, F listed that we have here: development, economic development, community development, tourism promotion, regional transportation, regional infrastructure, and any other matter prescribed by the regulation. Any other matter prescribed by the regulation does not include planning, right? Me too, no? All right. Okay, that answers our question. So Deputy Mayor Anderson and myself will know where to go from there. Did you want to add anything, Deputy Mayor Anderson? Do you have any questions? Because we're
I don't
both
have
representing.
questions.
You don't have any, no, but I mean, do you have anything you want to add, or you want to?
Well, you know, it's like I mentioned earlier, like, we are, yes, we represent the city at the Regional Service Commission, but it's a collective voice with everybody here. So for me, I know where my head is at and what my mouth is going to say, but I would just like, you know, the opinions of the rest of council, if you're on the same page as she and I, or if you think we're off our rockers, or...
I won't go there.
Well, I know it there, I know. I hear ya.
Conseiller Leblanc.
Pas député maire encore.
Non, non.
On va lui laisser son titre, OK?
Ouais, ouais.
Moi, je veux juste te dire que je te seconde. Donc, je t'appuie à 100%. Écoute, moi, je veux travailler avec nos voisins. Ça, pas de doute. D'ailleurs, ça a fait partie de ma plateforme quand m'ai présenté comme conseiller. Mais travailler avec, pas les subventionner. Il y avait des choses où on avait besoin d'aide financièrement. Là, je vois qu'il y a un effort de fait par, en tout cas, le groupe. Ça, j'apprécie ça. Il y a des affaires que j'apprécie. Mais ça me pue au nez de voir qu'on investit dans le tourisme et qu'on reçoit zéro. Ça, pour moi, ça, c'est... Non, je ne vais pas dire ce que je pense, parce que c'est pas de quoi je ne devrais pas dire des mots comme ça publiquement. Je trouve ça insultant, en tout cas. C'est le moins ce que je vais dire. Ça fait que tu as mon support, puis je veux que vous le sachiez. Mais je veux aussi que la communauté avoisinante ou les communautés avoisinantes sachent. Moi, je supporte un travail d'équipe, une collaboration. Mais une collaboration, ça ne peut pas être à compter d'un bord. Sinon, c'est plus une collaboration. Merci.
Okay. Councillor Hondas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Deputy Mayor Anderson hit the nail on the head a while ago, and I think more and more of our council have the same information and the same idea of this, that we're not being treated fairly, and we've been kind of carrying the load for a long time. And as Councillor LeBlanc just said, a partnership is 50-50. It's not 70-30, it's 50-50. We have a great opportunity, if we work together, to go and knock on some doors federally and provincially to get some help. But it's not, should be on our shoulders to bear everything. We've worked so hard to be who we are as a community. This is a great place to live. We work hard. We need to share cost at everything. And I think 50-50 for all establishments needs to be the way to go. When we asked the questions on the bus, they brought up the first year. Deputy Mayor Anderson asked for a 5-year plan, and with these numbers, it's not sustainable for us to be able to hold on to this. We've tried buses before, and it just never seems to work for some reason. I would be more up to what Councillor Branch said, to maybe try something in the city of its own. But why should we share the majority of the costs if all the stops are in Belle? And not to say that's a bad thing, because they've got to come this way too, but it should be, if that's going to be the case, it should be shared at more of a 50-50 rate than the rates that they're offering now. I stand behind you, and when's the meeting again for?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday. I think if all councilors could be there, we should go there and show our faces and let them know that we're not happy with decisions they're making, so.
Perfect, thank you. You know, I do want to add that, Madame Gauvin, your team, there's a lot of work that was put into this. I mean, it's books upon books, and I want to say thank you, certainly appreciate to you and your team. There was a lot of meetings prior to, and this is just a draft, right? It's not finalized, so imagine how much more moving forward, plus on the 25th, there's more to be presented there. So for myself as mayor, as council, we appreciate all the work and all the effort that's being done at the city level. And certainly keep up the good work. It makes it so much easier for us to make these decisions because it's black and white. It's right there. So, you know, the questions are there, but they're very minimal because everything is detailed really well. So good job on that. At the Regional Service Commission, I do want to say that, you know, they do have a team as well in that they're trying, basically, this is new for them as well. Every other Regional Service Commission has not asked for this. It was given to them, regulated by the province of New Brunswick. So, you know, as much as we are saying this, they're in a situation that was dropped on them as well. So they didn't ask for any of this, but they have to work with what they have. It's just for ourselves as a city and as council and mayor, we have to make sure that the funding and the costs that coming in is shared fairly because some of that money comes from the city of Bathurst. So, you know, I do appreciate the work that they do. I really do. I know I'm vice president at the Regional Service Commission. I was president for 19 months. Through this reform, it was a nightmare. So it's difficult on them too. It's just our job is to make sure that it's done fairly and help them out along the way. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. It's 9:35. I did not get a call, so of course I wasn't chosen. Nobody rang, right? Yeah. So our name didn't come out for Chase the Ace. Merci tout le monde. Bonne soirée. Merci Madame Gauvin. Puis je vous souhaite une belle soirée.